You just put the machine on an angle now.
This is the bounce out.
Yeah, bounce out.
Go!
If there's one way to do it, and there's the easier way and the harder way, it's beautifully the harder way.
This is it. And this is where all of the work we've done, all the technology that we've created comes together.
They take us all the way. They take us all the way.
Great romance, great war story, and something that hasn't been done before.
What are we on, day 247 or something?
I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm relieved, I'm overjoyed, I'm depressed. I've been living with this character, with these good people. I've been working on this piece since 1997.
The amount of time and what I've had a chance to participate in and what I've seen other actors do has just been inspiring.
The Wachowski brothers were literally shooting every day for 270 days, almost a year of shooting. It was an incredible task.
Because it's such a long period of our lives, and you know, we've all been together through a lot of fun and hard work and a lot of tragedy and sadness and a lot of happiness and joy. Every day coming to work is, for me, the highlight. So, I'll miss that.
The first movie's about birth. The second movie deals with life. The third movie's about death.
3 seems to come back down to this head-on collision that's going to happen between Neo and Smith and the defense of Zion, and they are also inextricably linked together.
We actually get to see the real confrontation. If this is it, this is going to be the takedown. One of us is going to win, one of us is going to lose.
And ultimately, everything is lost and everything is gained.
In less than 12 hours, the machines will breach the dock walls. We've seen that once the machines are inside the city, the odds of our survival decrease dramatically.
Has there been word from the Nebuchadnezzar?
None, and at this point, there's no reason to expect that there ever will be.
Perhaps. But we can hope.
Revolutions was like this wonderful poem on love and life and death.
All about trusting and having belief and having faith and fighting for that which you believe in. That in the darkness, if there's light, it will always prevail.
The nature of a reality and a alternate reality.
It's an epic, but it's an epic in postmodern terms, postmodern conditions, and yet it's timeless, because all great epics transcend any historical period. And I think in the end, The Matrix will also transcend its historical period.
It is a strong love story. It is a strong philosophical movie. It is a war movie. It is a giant action movie. It is kung fu. It brings everything together.
His neural patterns don't read like someone who's in a coma. The strange thing is, I see these patterns all the time.
Where?
On someone jacked in.
At the end of Reloaded, Neo finds himself caught in a construct made by the Merovingian.
He ends up disconnecting himself from his mind, and in this, I suppose it's like a purgatory.
My name is Sakti.
I'm at the train station. It functions as a realm of the programs, the crossover from being part of the machine world to the Matrix, where they're liberated.
To get from one world to this other world, Neo has to go through the train man.
Who are you?
The train man is kind of like the ferryman crossing the River Styx. But the train man is not necessarily a very cooperative person.
Humans are supposed to be free in the Matrix, but they're really imprisoned in programs they're now trying to escape because of deletion or other kinds of situations like Merovingian, who are now using the Matrix as a form for a free place to exist. Dealing with kind of the evolution of entities, programs, humans, machines, and nature.
Do you recognize me?
A part of you.
Yeah, that's how it works. Some bits you lose, some bits you keep. I don't yet recognize my face in the mirror, but I still love candy.
Aaliyah dying and September 11th, and then Gloria dying. That was a tough time.
We lost Gloria Foster, man. We lost Aaliyah, we lost Gloria. Her death devastated everyone. Larry and Andy in particular, I know.
Anybody you know, especially someone that sweet and just like everybody's grandma.
Gloria was a woman who was a giant in the American theater. Well-loved and well-respected, an incredible talent. Somebody who never really got her due, if you will. And the role of the Oracle was one in which she was actually able to sort of live out some of that.
She is that character. Her performance, her original performance is fantastic.
Not quite what you were expecting, right?
It was immediately apparent to anybody who read the scripts that her absence potentially was a structurally significant blow to the production.
Initially, we didn't know. And for Larry and Andy, they were like dumbfounded. And then it became a very difficult rewrite. You know, how to explain to have essentially one Oracle in Reloaded and then have a completely different person in Revolutions.
They reached out to Mary Alice, who played with Gloria Foster in New York for 2 years in a show called Having Our Say. And they were brilliant together.
Now, when I saw, I just thought Gloria was wonderful as the Oracle. I just sort of let myself be open. What about the
Mary Alice comes in and does an amazing job of presenting a living, breathing Oracle.
The saga of making the movie was as full of drama and thrills and chills and excitement as the movie themselves. Keanu and Carrie and Jada, Lawrence Hugo, I mean, they really worked hard.
Can I take your... Oh my God.
I had such anxiety when I walked onto the set. It reminded me of when Keanu and I did the government lobby. Just the idea of the squibs and the explosions and the pressure to get it. I was just like, whew.
This way?
Yeah. The boys were very specific. This is a big old heavy ship, so you gotta look like you're really turning this thing and you're trying to turn it fast and whew, we were really sweating.
They're not interested in just spectacle. They put the camera in places that you generally never put it. Longer takes, different angles that you don't usually see, longer fight sequences, and it's much more difficult to do. But what happens then, if you do get it, it's like it's really happening.
Good. Are you okay?
Okay, everyone.
Oh, I thought he was saying my head.
It's a diving thing.
I have to kick this guy and he goes through the wall. And every time I did the kick, I had my eyes closed until they said he was okay. Because I was so afraid he was just gonna like get a concussion or hurt himself or, oh, that was so crazy. Those guys are crazy. I never knew stuntmen until this film, and stuntmen and stuntwomen are very, very special people. They're like kids.
I'm always surprised by the shots that they can come up with. Each time they surprise us with a new angle, a new type of shot.
It's one of those films that's really in the imagination of the directors, really. It's in their heads. But once you kind of get into their heads, they can make that journey too.
It just evolves, you know. It's just, you have the idea and you proceed with it. It evolves into another idea. You proceed with it. It evolves into another idea. You don't know until the day you show up.
Oftentimes it's Larry with a finder and Andrew at the monitor. And they find the scene. Well, should we put the camera here? Should we put it here? Should we put it there? It's been great to be a part of that creative process with them.
The amount of sets and the amount of setups and the amount of units shooting at one time, it was mind-boggling.
It takes an army of people doing the conceptual drawings, the storyboards, physically building those things, painting them. Larry and Andy and Bill Pope standing on that set and directing and photographing the actors. And then add to it visual effects.
What's a pod-born pencil neck like you doing volunteering for my corps?
I want to do my part, sir. We gotta hold the dock.
How old are you, kid?
18.
Should have said 16. I might have believed that.
Machines don't care how old I am. They'll kill me just the same.
The siege is where all the bruises came from, and it's gonna be well worth every bruise.
Siege is the climactic confrontation between man and machine in the tradition of Jeff Darrow. It would be very, very, very dense frame.
Jeff Darrow established a lot of the design with these massive drawings where every single bolt was detailed and every bit of rust had a line. The challenge of making that into the siege was massive.
It's really an epic sequence. I mean, it is just huge. It uses everything that a filmmaker has at his disposal to create something gigantic. Full of live action photography, integrated with CGI photography, integrated with miniature work.
The amount of art and technology that's had to come together in such a short period of time is pretty much second to none.
You have to get everybody together, work it out. First it comes from the brothers, then it goes to Owen, and then it goes to John, and it comes to me, and we just slowly hammer it out. What does it really look like? What does it look like finally on celluloid?
We're standing on the dock set at the moment, and you can see all these fantastic sentinels. Larry and Andy like to have some physical set into which to place a visual effect.
It's something that could not have been done ever until right now.
Getting the scene even initiated, visual effects-wise, was like climbing over a glacial mountain.
300 shots. It's a 17-minute sequence that cost more than most movies that have been made.
100,000 gigabytes of disk storage. Companies on 3 different continents, having 1,000 employees.
So many hundreds of crafts all working together.
My name is Lyndon Barrois, and I am the animation supervisor.
I'm Dan Glass. I'm one of the visual effects supervisors.
My name is Scott Kravitz.
Visual effects supervisor.
Visual effects technology supervisor.
Animation supervisor.
Character setup artist.
Head of R&D.
Color and lighting TD.
My name's Alistair McLeod. I'm
technical director.
What am I?
I worked on the hair tool.
Randy, like animator.
Animatic.
Animator.
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 Animator. Animator.
Lead animator on the siege.
The scene has been drawn, visualized, discussed, tested for a solid 2 years now. It was
extraordinary just looking at that animation, and that was just a rough idea of what was going to happen.
They prevised this entire sequence. So more often than not, we use the previs as the Bible.
They had this amazing APU and all its accoutrements.
Which is essentially a robot that they sit in the seat of.
Again, it came from a drawing that Jeff did. It was a huge effort to kind of construct that.
One of my great pleasures was to show them one of these drawings. As soon as they started laughing, I knew I did what they wanted.
10 tons of metal, he could make it shoot all over the place.
So the other part of the set that was made was a human carriage. It's got all these fantastically dramatic moves, which are all run off the animation cycle that John Gator's team at Escape have worked out.
As an animator, you actually got to drive those performances beforehand. So those performances are already tailored to an action that you've developed.
It was like being in the ultimate PlayStation game, you know? You were actually in the game, to be in there shooting down these bad guys and being the last man standing.
So it's been all of these people that go together, put all these bits and pieces together. Eventually you get an APU standing there.
We have launched a miniature unit working specifically on things that get destroyed.
Things breaking, things smashing. We still do a good job at that.
When you are a good filmmaker, you know how to use CGI. It is an incredible tool.
Our team is essentially just working on The Siege, which is recreate this entire underworld environment. The dock, the characters, the platforms, the subfloor, throwing in all of our thousands of Sentinel swarms. The biggest CG battle that I've seen in a film.
So it's a real mishmash of real art-directed physical objects, actors, digital creatures, miniatures, and computer graphics.
You don't think you're coming back? I knew it the moment you said you had to leave. I could see it in your face. Just like you knew the moment you looked at me that I was coming with you. Here we go.
One of the things that I love so much about Trinity is just her complete and total love that she has for Neo and the belief that she has in Neo. And she's, not going to be told that, she can't do something. She's very proactive. She goes in there and finds a way.
That's all you said to go?
Yeah, give it to me right away. I want it.
3, 2, 1, go. Cut.
Trinity and Neo sort of ascend while Morpheus and Niobe are descending. The world seems to be coming to this, catastrophic end. It's beautiful.
Lawrence is like bouncing a tennis ball back and forth and back and forth. He and I were out there playing tennis.
Can we make it?
We ain't come this far.
Smiths are meant to be all the same, and yet, do you dissipate the energy of Smith for a viewing audience if there isn't one central Smith? Does the viewer really want there to be one central, extremely bad Smith that they can kind of focus on?
The whole Neo-Smith interchange all the way through is the key to the Matrix to me, and it really comes to a head in 3.
It's a negotiation, right? It's a contest of will.
They're opposites, and therefore they have to be together in life and death.
They had equal power and equal strength, but one wants one thing and one wants the other.
He expresses the desire to be all powerful. He seems to be taking over the world. Yeah. And he seems to relish that.
Mr. Anderson, welcome back. We missed you.
It ends tonight.
Super Brawl takes place in the street, in the air, and then in a building, and then in a crater.
Rain was unbelievable. But they couldn't get much done. It was the highest example of like, da-da-da, cut, okay, set up. And a setup would take a long time. So they'd have to dry the guys. But it was, you know, that was crazy. That's a crazy scene.
The challenge was getting a hell of a lot of water in and getting a hell of a lot of water out without flooding the whole studio.
Matrix code was originally conceived to look like rain. It was supposed to look like water coming down the screen. So when you actually have rain, you of course want to allude to the Matrix code rain. So we wanted fat rain, which we ended up calling chubby rain, large nozzles and huge amounts of water.
The rain was so heavy that it was hard to speak without starting to have bubbles and streams of water running out of your mouth. We did one little piece. We had like 78 takes, and then went back the next day and did another 15 or something like that.
Fight gets taken skyward, and there is feats of flying and flying, fighting, and ways of battling in the sky. The whole scene is a serious amount of blending between computer graphics and photography.
They wanted to see flight in a way that we would assume would be the characters would have weight, and they would move, and they would feel like they were flying.
We had to devise some practical methods which were rig-based, and then, of course, applying virtual humans anywhere that we could to do some of the more complex camera coverage. The virtual human process is a combination of the motion capture and universal capture. The beginning of the story starts with going up in the zero-G plane and studying what it looks like to be doing martial arts in zero gravity.
They use those zero-gravity plane devices to train astronauts. They go up to a certain height and they do a quick drop, which kind of suspends the participants in a weightless situation. Gaeta and the guys wanted to get a sense of what weightlessness was like.
It's a really excellent reference we actually used as a template for how the shots would look. And there's a lot of bits and pieces that are achieved by motion capture.
It's kind of like the strings of a puppet. The cameras can't actually see the actors, but we record those motions, and then we can attach those motions to a different character.
And you kick Hugo!
You just have to find some joy in it.
Universal capture, which is kind of like emotion capture, where they do tremendous, very, very high definition photography of a face, and then the computer actually records how they are, so they can actually take one person's face and put it onto another person's face.
Deliver a hit, you're running in, you're pissed at him because you're going to just take him out. Come on.
It's like your whole performance is being taken apart, and the way in which you do things is being put under the microscope. Every little movement, every little sound, every little part of your body is being scrutinized and filmed and I don't mind this sort of thing, but flipping around, don't like that.
It just takes place all around you and above you and below you. It is everything every comic book reader or comic book fan has ever dreamed of.
Folks, the gate's good, so that will be a motion picture wrap on Morpheus, Lawrence Fishburne on Matrix Reloaded.
We are forever connected to each other. And we are forever identified by these characters.
It's been a transforming experience. It's been so much learning, and it's been hard, wonderful.
Being on this project has helped me grow in so many different ways.
It's been hard, but that's what makes it really good, you know? Rolling up the sleeves and trying to realize this dream. You know, it's kind of been one of my mantras through the days. It's just, you know, may we realize this dream.
It's wonderful to be so committed to something that you believe in.
There just aren't many projects like The Matrix. This is the only movie I would have sacrificed 2 years of my life for. This is the only one.
People took the most extraordinary things out of the first one. This one will be no different.
It's an evergreen. It's going to be around for a long time, a long, 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 long time.
Hopefully we'll have fun, things to think about, things to talk about, and we'll create some moments about being excited, going to the movies.
Everything that has a beginning has an end.
If you like really big physical things, you know, blowing up, and if you like that stuff, yeah, it's very exciting.
There are no little shots. There's no like, hey, we're going to do the simple scene now. We're going to do the... There isn't any such thing.
It's so large in my imagination, I can't see. I have got no idea about how it's going to feel.
Yeah.
It's a very involved and very labor-intensive sequence with so many people and so many hundreds of crafts all working together.
We had this really strong sense this was one of the most complex sequences that anybody had ever attempted. I mean, it was going to involve everything, live action and miniatures and motion base, large sets, lots of CG, really complex scenes. And we had to make all of that fit together so that you never felt like you were seeing all these different kinds of technologies.
This is for a CG character in the battle in Zion. And, will be replaced with I guess, computer-generated images of us.
It's a rig they used on another film.
We're calling it the PMS rib, but it means please make it stop.
I thought, oh, this could be very handy as a sentinel arm.
We're actually going to be able to pick people up and just whip them around like they're on the end of a tentacle and flip them off.
We did it what they referred to as mocap, motion capture, where the guys had sensors on them and they went through the stunt action and it was all captured on computer.
Beyond 30 feet or so, we think that we can trick the eye pretty easily. And so all of that cyberware stuff and UCAP and all that was really to make all these peripheral characters and secondary action around the battle.
We have points on the person's body. And we have all these 28 cameras. Each one looks at the points and it figures out where it is in space. So we take each of these points, and if you have 2 points on your hand and you're moving like this, we see these points like this. If you want to be able to take a computer image and make it look exactly like a person, how it moves, you have to do this motion capture process. You just have to.
A little bit more off to the side earlier, like so he gets picked up and he gets taken over here and shucking around? Yeah, like you just went woof.
Right, listen up. It changes that. It'll flick up and we'll go a diagonal.
The thing I love about motion capture is that this system is the closest thing to net docking chairs that we have. Actors come down here, We put sensors on them and we put them directly in the computer.
Stand by, quiet,
A little
please.
closer to the real Matrix.
And John.
Rolling on take 4.
Ready?
Speed.
And Glenn.
Best one so far. Great, Glenn. Are you all right?
Yeah.
Good.
3, 2, 1.
The way we could change that around a little bit too would be to run something behind the bunker.
Oh, yeah. Do you want a walkway like that then?
We're going to keep to the horizontal and vertical sort of orientation like that.
Yeah, a couple like that.
We chose to go with miniatures because we had a lot of destruction to do.
You can't beat it for getting tactile interaction when things are blowing up or being destroyed or smashed. You get a lot of stuff for free right in front of camera.
Most of the things that are being built primarily involve special effects, physical effects.
There's one element in here that's not quite right. It's a giveaway, then you're not going to believe it. You certainly see older films where they tried certain visual effects and it's a dead giveaway. And it's usually always has to do with water, smoke, or fire.
It should look seamless. I mean, you shouldn't really be able to tell the difference between live action, visual effects, and miniatures.
I wanted to draw stuff so you could see how it worked, and so that if they built it, it wasn't just impressions of things.
All right, there, do that.
Okay.
Any questions?
Nope. We'll get art from the art department, and also art department will generate a mock-up model, a 3D miniature of what we're going to be building. From that, they then generate blueprints like these here that they use in live action, and they also generate the animatic models. And then the animatic models can be handed back to us, and we'll do model unit blueprints from those. And then we'll also do laser cuts and CNC files from those. Adam and I will take our AutoCAD files from the computer room in there, and we'll run them through a program that'll translate all the CAD data into an actual tool path that tells the head where to go. Throw in a new sheet. Perfect and delicious every time. These are going to be lightning rods inside the dock area where the hovercrafts land.
And then we're also going to be storing it and pre-breaking it strategically so that in the scene in which this is in, it's a crash sequence of the Mjolnir, it'll break realistically.
All these amazing people working and real artists working and real craftsmen working. We have the most talented crew. It's just phenomenal. You know, and it's not all computer. Nothing against computers, though.
So this is the final result of all the work that the whole team does. You know, things like this grill, all the very intricate little planar details, they're all laser cut. A lot of these walls here, and then the model makers come in and all the little greebly details and the texture and rivets and stuff, they've added all those and kind of made the whole thing work.
This model's about 4 months of work, averaging about 12 people a day.
Like the first team that worked on this one were the welders.
Solid carpentry, framing it up.
They'll build all the core structures out of wood and steel.
There's a lot of cast pieces on here that went through the mold room.
Then, of course, we have the paint crews that will do a lot of the texturing and painting, and then we also have the electricians that'll do all the miniature lighting.
Things are changing up to the last minute in this crane topple shot. Some angles are changing, some dynamics and how it's going to fall is changing. So the tests we did 7 months ago with the big wooden mock-up of this crane don't really apply much anymore. So with 1 day left to go before we shoot it, we're trying to guess what's going to happen differently if we turn this at a different angle and where it's going to land. Even though this doesn't tell us much, it tells me a little bit about how it's going to land and where it's going to fall.
Everything we make, we blow up.
Let's roll cameras. And lightning. Ready. And action.
At the same time, we were going to make a miniature of a particular object that was going to explode, like the gate of the dock. If we were going to make that anyway, then we were going to try to get that to be as good looking as possible and then photograph it to use as textures for computer graphics. So there are a lot of CG objects that are going to be in the dock environment that were based off of photographic textures of the same miniatures. So it's kind of a hybrid approach.
Go!
Now! It's really an epic sequence. I mean, it is just huge. And it's unusual because it uses everything that a filmmaker has at his disposal to create something gigantic. It is full of live action photography, integrated with CGI photography, integrated with miniature work.
Halfway up, all sabers.
Like, you know, just below.
Through tremendous breakthroughs in visual effects, breakthroughs in composite photography, breakthroughs in every kind of available electronic and mechanical medium. I mean, it's something that could not have been done ever until right now. It's just Hollywood at its most insane.
John, the way you treat your staff.
Get back to that computer.
Right now, I'm making concrete pipes for blowing up. Pretty much that's what we make most of our stuff for, is blowing stuff up.
Every time you see a spaceship crash into the ground, be it in, you know, Planet of the Apes or Independence Day, you know, it's a miniature.
You know, the scale of this is massive. And to get that scale and debris and fire and everything, nothing can compete with a miniature.
Things that would be destroyed or be huge event locations where things would just shatter.
CG is not really too great on doing stuff like explosions, interaction of stuff actually hitting, matching, and debris coming off. So that's the stuff that really sort of happens here.
There's just a lot of serendipity or randomness that happens.
We can pick up a lot of that detail that we wouldn't otherwise be able to get. And so, you know, trying to get that extra little bit of realism into our CG city.
Seems like the person's probably just about this tall.
When they say you're gonna work on the model unit, you know, you imagine these tiny little models, little figures, and then you realize when you arrive that, you know, either something that's even 10th scale or 3rd scale or 5th scale is still huge.
Technically, it is a miniature, even though that ship is close to a ton.
They're the biggest miniatures you've ever seen. They don't look like miniatures at all. They look like live action sets.
The studio started calling bigatures because, like the dock door is, even though it's 10th scale, is really 30 feet high and 40 feet wide.
Why aren't we building this even, you know, half this scale? It's because we have explosions and fire, and you can't change the size of fire.
Ready and action.
On this film, we pretty much started out with the digger, which is our key actors, our players in this. We built part of a 5th scale digger and a 10th scale digger. They built a shape of the finished digger, essentially, but with absolutely no features on it whatsoever, but very heavy. It weighed a couple of 100 pounds, I think, and so they could drop it in a controlled manner into the specially constructed 1 to 10 scale pipes.
This is going to be where the digger plunges into the lower dock set. These pipes are pyrosil and aluminum, and they're going to crush down to simulate real pipes. Should be good.
Right, but you want the pyro coming from inside the pipes, though.
Yeah, inside the
So
catwalk.
it was difficult to build these complex environments and make all of the reactions happen properly. That the explosions, the pipes that would flip up into frame, the debris that would fall, tried to capture as much of that as possible.
Action!
This project I have right now, we're taking miniature sentinels, I call them baby sentinels, and we're destroying them. They're the dead sentinels that'll be placed on one of the crash sets.
And those sentinels have been used for a dropping sequence. It looks like a great big pile of seaweed. It's a fantastic effect.
They are evil little creatures, but the bad guys are always so much neater, so I like working with the bad guys.
A lot of the miniatures, again, have to do with interaction. In the case of the dock, a control tower up there that topples down during the battle, and that will be built in miniature just for that purpose.
The hamburger is an extension of what we built in Australia.
They built like the top 20 feet of this in live action, and we've built everything above that. And this tower will be in a giant room that'll be generated in computer graphics.
Primarily, it's for where they need to go really close so that you don't have to go and render the whole thing out for that.
There's a lot of fine detail surface area on this one.
They'll build all the core structures out of wood and steel. It's got to be steel because they're going to be crashing this crane over the side of this tower.
This is the crane. This goes up on top, and this thing could spin all the way around.
Even at 10th scale, it's an extremely large model. To do the motion control photography on it, we had to build a motion control crane. That's one of the largest motion control cranes in the world.
We finished weighing and it weighs 5,100 pounds, the whole model. And the crane top that's going to fall is 800 pounds, which is scary and exciting all at the same time.
That tower has been absolutely beautifully designed, and now we're going to see it destroyed.
The ship will pass right through all of this acrylic, which will represent the deck, and it will just bust into 1,000,000 pieces, hopefully. Or 1,000 pieces.
Unless we make it too strong, and then the ship's going to stop.
So this is what we came up with for the finale of the Mjolnir into Zion to save the day.
The Mjolnir, I put these scales on it, or these big metal plates. That gives extra detail because they're these plates that you can like break chunks off, like it broke, skidded against something.
The actual doors. Yes. Yeah, I think each one is like 3,500 pounds.
The gate, we must have the biggest gate. We need this gigantic mechanical, machinery-driven gate.
This door behind me was the biggest roll aid shot for me. It had the most possibilities for absolute failure.
And then when that thing is traveling down the track, we did a test yesterday, it's like a car just flying down the road. It's pretty freaky. Yeah.
This is probably one of our largest events.
The ship weighed about a ton. It had to go pretty fast. It had to make a turn. And then while it was making the turn and squeaking through the door and blowing up, it was dropping and rolling, and the nose was sliding over. So this was a pretty big deal.
We have 5 cameras, and it takes us days to set up these shots. We're all a little nervous if we're not sure whether it's gonna be right or not. We're crossing our fingers.
Ship is safe, ship is safe.
Call that a direct hit.
Jesus Christ. Looks like the Hurricane Mjolnir came through here.
There are so many things that can be achieved by having the background into which they can put a digger or whatever it might be They start off with a basis and then they can add to it.
Computer graphics and the miniatures are actually integrated into every shot. So you'll have CG models, you'll have hand-built models, you'll have computer graphic pyro layered on top of real pyro, and ideally the blend will be seamless.
Like taking the old-fashioned way of movies and blending it with the most modern way of doing movies and trying to get the best elements out of each.
Set and action.
The Super Bowl essentially is between one smith and Neil, with all the other smiths standing on and watching, like a kind of football crowd.
In this day and age to do a hybrid film of live action and visual effects, you gotta be able to do some shots in camera.
Because of the nature of some of the shots that had to be done in the scene, where really you would be concentrating on Keanu and Hugo fighting and it's raining. In the background you had to have Smiths, you know, many Smiths. But you wouldn't want to have to put them in every shot as a visual effect. So I said one day, well, why don't we make a whole of, you know, rubber Smiths? And they looked at me like I was completely mad.
We went through a variety of ideas and eventually arrived at some pretty photorealistic dummies.
Hugh and Peter want to put so much effort into getting the right molds and doing the right work on the faces. They were really like Hugo.
They were pretty successful and turned out so much better than it seemed like we were going to be able to do at the beginning.
We've got to do a cast of this one, and we're going to do this one again. And this one a little bit more meter.
There are three different models. There's grumpy, there's happy, and there's neutral. And they made more neutrals than they made grumpies and happies. Just neutral.
Taking 3 head impressions of Hugo Weaving, and what we'll be doing is a combination of Agent Smith masks as well as dummies, 100 dummies and 50 masks to be worn by actors.
They did a number of different tryouts, a number of different materials to make the mask and to try and get the right tone.
That was the original one we made. That's a hard resin. So is this one. The reaction was it looked too hard. So we've since then made some out of silicon rubber. The purpose of doing a silicon skin is that when the lights are on this, the silicon skin will glow like human flesh. And the rain also sits differently in it. It just runs off, whereas on the fiberglass head, the rain just tends to sit there.
They'd also got my body as well and hands, and put hands in gel. They wrapped my body up in plaster bandages, and I stood there for like hours, and you know. So this is me.
So after it's been painted, we'll send that off to the hair and makeup. We'll put a wig on it.
It's been an interesting project because this scene that we're doing, I don't think has ever been done before. I don't think anything like it has been done before. We're cutting 182 wigs. We've had all the wigs handmade. They're all hand-tied. They're going to be standing in the pouring rain, which makes throws another element into what we have to think about or how we're thinking about doing these wigs. They have to endure heavy rain and they can't get messed up. That's the trick. We actually put silicone on the hair, so we kept up that little front, which gives him that Smith look.
They had to make a wig for me because all my doubles were standing there beautifully with their hair staying up in the rain, but my hair in the rain, even with the massive amount of hairspray, started to just fall down on my face. That's how crazy it got.
Our department have worked out an elaborate system of keeping everyone warm, keeping everyone dry.
Yeah, it's a major collaboration between the art department, props department, and costume, getting everybody looking the same.
60 masks, 60 corresponding wigs.
You know, you have to multiply everything by 100. You know, there's 100 left hands, right hands, feet, shoes, ties, tie pins, cufflinks.
It's a big challenge because of the intensity of the rain all the time. It's hard to be in the rain every day for 15 hours.
I seem to recall having 80 humans and 150 fiberglass dummies, which the art department made up, and they were fantastic because they were all dimensionally perfect. It was easy to deal with them. It was the 80 humans. They're all 6'2", but they're so different, and some had long torsos, some were all legs, some had extremely sloping shoulders. Larry and Andy wanted to do a tracking shot, and everybody's shoulder points had to meet.
And at the moment we have a whole team of dummies. This we'll have a row of 51, and then another row of 51, and then a row of 50 or 51 extras, who will also be wearing Hugo Weaving or Agent Smith look-like masks. And then we'll be training them on how to use the mechanism and left-right turns and nods and what have you.
They all have handles in the back, which are operated by one extra. Operates 2 Hugos, turning the heads or tilting the heads and turning.
This is the repair station. With the turning of the heads, there's a lot of wear and tear on the necks, and the paint tends to rub and lift a bit, so we have to repaint and seal the necks. The silicone paint that we use takes a day to fully dry before we put them back into the neck mechanisms.
It's awesome. I hope we even wear this skin-tight wetsuit. You can't even move it, cuts the circulation off your arms because of the water. It's piling down, the biggest storm you've ever seen in your life, and we're in this mask that we can't get out of all day. But it's all in good fun.
They're quite disconcerting, right? Even to Hugo.
The communists? No!
Yeah, even Mr. Weaving himself got a bit spooked when he saw himself replicated many times.
Same. Everyone is the same.
Hugo's been very good. He's been very happy to have his head moulded, and I think he loves looking at all these guys.
You love me?
Seeing Keanu Reeves and Lawrence Fishburne or Hugo Weaving doing the stunt, it just opens up a whole new world. When you see the guys falling down, those are the real actors falling down.
So maybe if it's just like a regular, so if that last left, so yeah, you know, so if I just hold that one there, and if you went to throw the other one,
you know, it was really up to us some days to ask everyone around us, Wu Ping's team and the American and Australian stunt teams, what we needed to do. You know, I had a real input into sometimes.
Just classic. Kaboom!
And then that's like not working out for a while.
The first time the fights were choreographed, and we learnt them like dancers, like ballets, and they didn't change. They hardly changed at all when we shot them. This time round, there were quite major changes made on the day while we were fighting, and we had to swing with that and accept that, well, now you weren't doing that, you were actually doing that, or there was a kick coming in or something, or you just cut out an element because that part of the fight was too long.
Everyone, I think, because they had their own experience before, knew how they personally wanted to involve themselves in their training.
It was pretty daunting, but I was actually just determined to train hard and train well and to get fit and not get injured.
You've got a 20-pound sandbag on your back, and someone's pushing you, looking to warm you up after 2 hours so that they can crack, basically trying to open up your ligaments here, so you're gonna split, and then, you know, go, you ready? And then when you least expect, you know. And after they do that, you go, thank you. Thank you for making me cry, because now I can kick higher.
I always say, Tiger, you kill me. Never somebody treat me like this, push me so hard, make me cry every day. If you want to kick that high, you want to look good on movie, I say you have to.
It's good fun, but it's taxing. And I'm an old man. I'm 37 years old, you know?
Very few times you get pushed to your actual ability. I think Larry and Andy have done a pretty exceptional job of pushing the martial arts stunt team pretty much to their ability. They don't stop till they get exactly what they want.
Their whole thing is to push you that a little bit farther, and as frustrating as it gets, it really brings the best out in everybody.
For me, it's such a great opportunity to be able to be asked to do that. If it's easier for me to start in one spot and do a move, they'll go, oh, we'd like you to start in the action just behind where you have to do a 360 turn around and do it.
Oh God, we did one little piece, we had like 78 takes, I think. And then went back the next day and did another 15 on just one very percussive piece of fight. And then when we got into the crater, we were fighting in the mud as well. So it was mud and rain, but by that stage, the fight had become more like a flailing around, you know.
No matter how good you think it is, you got to go that extra notch. And we're talking perfection, which is good. It pushes all of us, but the Wachowski factor is definitely something to contend with.
3, 2, 1, go!
Chad Stahelski has been such a great boon, I think, to this project. He developed a thing called a twisty belt. Allowed me to do backflips into cartwheels. We could do multi-directional rotations as opposed to being limited by a regular Hong Kong harness. You know, in this, you could twist and rotate.
It's like it's a metal corset. Yeah, it feels quite comfortable, but I don't think you'd want to wear it for very long.
Wire work, when you first see it, it seems easy, but it takes a lot of practice to get used to. It's not the most comfortable thing in the world, and it takes time. Because whether or not the wire lifts you up or puts you down, you still need to be flexible. You still need to be able to kick, you still need to be able to punch, and you still need the strength to pull your body up into the positions that we need. Shot for shot, that's Keanu doing it. That's him getting his leg way up here, kicking the guys in the head. That's him flying up in the air, coming down with the triple kicks and stuff. That's them.
Trying to find the sky like no one's ever fought in the sky before.
Action! Hard, lead, go, kick!
We've seen some flight occur, but they wanted to see it in a way that we would assume would be the characters would have weight and they would move and they would feel like they were flying.
The tuning forks were very interesting because of what Chad wanted to achieve you could not do on wires.
So we looked at all these Cirque du Soleil and special acrobatic type tapes, and there's equipment that they were using. Conceptually, we saw a connection, or at least the martial arts guys and Chad and RA, you know, sort of borrowed from some, you know, basically circus methods.
We took a gymnastic, a trampoline twisting belt, or aerial spotting belt, and modified it to take the weight and stress load that the belts experience in these rigs, and then made it about twice as smooth and about 10 times as strong. And then used special adapters to plug into our single arm pitchforks. Chop! Bam! Good. Faster you get around, the better.
14 guys just to operate the tuning forks, and so you had to coordinate and choreograph, and everyone had to be in tune and in sync with each other because of the actors and the stunt guys actually coming in, fighting, spinning, rotating, and the mass of those two units was quite extreme. They had to be very diligent and very careful because the impact of those two mechanisms was a very dangerous thing.
The tuning forks are not comfortable at best. They're ugly. They hurt, especially the twisty belts, and they just tear on your hips. Really, it's a lot of pain.
We're just always in the harnesses, and after like 18 hours, it kind of hurts most of the time.
The guys get in them, and they would go into what we called the cave. They would just get so far into pain, and the pain would go away, and they would just You didn't really want to talk to them. They would just look at you and they would acknowledge you, and they knew what you asked them to do, but there wasn't any friendly socializing going on there. We tried to put the actors in for as minimal amount of time as possible because it was not comfortable. We made a pack. When you got in them, you shot till you were done.
So whenever you're flipping or twisting around the hit, look for him.
Okay.
And that keeps your eyes focused on something. That may hold off the nausea.
The nausea.
But what is the difference between this and the yak rig?
Yeah. Well, on the yak rig, you yak.
Again, another one of those torture deals, but this was a pole that the two gentlemen face each other and they could turn this way. The pole would allow them to turn this way, and then they could turn the whole base this way. So you had 3 axes going. Real unfriendly rig, hurt again in the hips, made you sick to your stomach.
So it's like a really good carnival ride, and because there's 2 of us in it, it's a nice challenge to see who's going to quit first.
It became a game with them who was going to wimp out first on them, but they didn't like it. You know, it was not good. They were good for about 10 or 15 rotations at a time. Then it was a lot of eyes rolling back in their heads and, you know, trying to see who was going to keep their lunch down.
It's called the yak rig for one reason.
When it goes good, it feels good. When it doesn't go good, it doesn't feel good.
That's a good guess.
A big component of the art department is the construction of all these sets. It's a lot of construction.
I worked here, you know, originally I went to America and we discussed what we were going to do, and I came back and I worked here in Sydney and made some plans, and then Hugh came on for a while and we worked together, and then we started to shoot.
We've got 16 sets up at the moment in the 5 stages. They start shoot today. One set, and some of the sets we're in are in for only half a day. There's a lot of movement between areas in the second film that moves at a pretty fast pace, so they do a lot of sort of travelling between spaces. And 5 stages and 140 sets in 8 months is a bit of a nightmare. So it's going to be pretty tough for those guys for the next 8 months. This is our usual Monday afternoon comedy review, where we try and go through everything and see if we're up to date. So we should get our first rushes clearance on Monday and go and start pulling down the sets. As soon as you start building, start pulling them down. That's great. This is the coordination area of the art department. Being such a big movie, we need to have a few people around here who take care of us and take care of day-to-day business. Art director's den. They do what art directors do most of the time. The design, the heart of the construction area, these people take care of all the plans for all the sets after the concepts are done.
There's 3 art directors. We split up the sets into our various components and who was going to do what. So most of the Super Brawl is all mine, and Catherine's doing a lot of the Zion stuff, and Charlie's doing a lot of a lot of fight sequences and a lot of second unit.
Computer design area. We have various things. Jonathan's doing the Sentinel. Andrew's been doing a lot of the Zion stuff that we had started in America. We're finishing off over here and turning into working drawings that our construction guys can understand and read. Screen graphics area, which we're in doing our own in-house manufacture of all our screen graphics for the Nebuchadnezzar, the control room, and the whole interface is happening in this area over here. Basically, by having it in-house, we get to fiddle around more with it and get more out of it rather than farm it out. We have in this building in a minute a set design department, set decoration. We've got our coordinating department up there with PAs and apprentices and all sorts of people. And on the other half of the building, we've got about another 50 people over there who work for the prop manufacture department. They'll make up all props and dressings and weapons that the wire guys want to use, and just about everything.
Just a smooth left to right. That's enough. Very smooth look down.
You know, everything I think flows from Larry and Andy's mind, and to be able to take that along with everyone else on this kind of journey from being a written word to a drawing on a piece of paper to an image to something that's physically built or imaginarily built in a computer, it is a wonderful thing.
It's a typical and a beautiful shot for second unit. Second unit excel at this type of work. This is what we're made for, we're designed for. We love blowing things up. Basically, I think the job in the second unit, particularly my job, is to get the stuff that the main unit haven't got time to do for whatever reason. Did you get the impression about companies too, maybe? Exactly, sure.
It's like the wreckage that's left over. It's 3 different scenes every day, bits of stuff that we started shooting 10 months ago. Moving, you know, sort of heavy bits of metal through space very precisely, incredibly fast.
We've been doing different types of things, from traditional second unit work, like the classic insert of bullet hitting, to a lot of, you know, visual effects oriented shots. My direction comes from the brothers, so in conversation with them, I'll, you know, talk about the type of thing they want. There might be a storyboard reference or a pre-visualisation, which I can work on. It starts off with a conversation, then I might go and set up a scene and show them, is this the type of thing you think? They might say, yeah, but maybe change the angle.
We should do one version where he just glares at him and slams it, in case it's the dialogue is intercut in that other scene.
So it's a dialogue that goes on, but the end result is to get what they want for their films. See, this is what second unit do. This is a lovely Saturday, really hot, sunny day in Sydney, and the brothers said you have to get out in the city and shoot cars and shoot backplates, and you'll see it appear in a scene. Seraph driving the car on the way to the Oracle.
I have to see her.
Second unit on the Burly Man operate at their best when they're left to their own mad devices.
3, 2, 1,
We did some of the Super Burly Brawl, where we put a camera up on the roof and it was isolated and spinning down. We liked that one.
I suppose we did do a majority of Trinity Falls, with the exception of, like, you know, maybe one shot or something like that.
Thank you very much.
The very high-speed track we built, which basically comes past Trinity and pans and sort of like goes away from her to represent her kind of falling down the building. That was like 5 months of working out how to make a camera go that fast safely and pass Carrie-Anne Moss by about 1.5 foot past her shoulder.
You're a little late. Got a touch earlier, yeah?
When I had the first conversation with the brothers, and they said that it wasn't enough work for them to just do the 2 sequels. They had to do a game as well. Well, in fact, the first day I started, we had the Hong Kong Wire team. We were doing a big stunt sequence with Roy Jones Jr. And I thought, well, this is the first day. It doesn't get much better than that.
1, 2, 3!
In fact, I went up to Wu Ping and said, you know, it's a great privilege to work with you, Wu Ping. And somebody pointed out, well, actually, that's not Wu Ping. That's Fish, but this is Wu Ping over here. That was my beginning, day one.
Which, in particular, was your favourite shot?
The one up on the tower there, that it actually turned out to, I think, to be the best angle. It like shows off the entire set, shows off the entire explosion. It's the only angle that really gets the whole event in the one shot. It's a cool shot. This scene is actually sort of like equates a little to the fireball explosion in the government lobby in the first movie. We shot that as well, and that was a lot of fun because like the flames are great in slow motion. You get to get down there at deep exposure, and you get the really great colour out of the flames and fireballs kind of like rolling across the ground and stuff like that. Yeah, it's kind of a bit of a signature thing in the Matrix.
Julia and I had a thing going for a while there, but her teeth were a bit too big for me. You know, she's got some big choppers.
The second unit to me is like a mad European family. There's a lot of crazy things happening, but generally the mood is pretty good. We try and keep it up because by the nature of the type of work you're doing on second unit, which is at times it can be a laborious task, so we try and maintain a lighter air to the sense of humour about it. So.
Yeah, blowing things up for those of you can't understand.
Oh no, it's White Island's good. White Island's good. The light's better over here. Give me a more specific question.
It's just a huge thing. It's like the scale of it, the density of the filming is enormous.
The other day somebody said, what do you think about scene 727? That's scene 727. It's like, how can you hold 727 scenes? And there's 760 or something in these two movies.
Action!
It's a different movie in some senses than the first one. It's a larger canvas. As a painter, you take up a large painting and a small painting, and it's an entirely different feeling that you're going to come up with. The tools you'd use to make one are not necessarily the tools you need for another one.
Left high school, I went to the University of Virginia and went to the architecture school there. My parents gave me the money to go to Europe for the summer. And I went to New York on the way there, and I never got to Europe, actually. I just took film courses. So then I went to NYU graduate school, started concentrating on shooting movies, moved to LA and MTV, and here I am. I remember when I started a movie a long time ago, I was doing a lot of MTV, and the director wanted me to do a feature, and she was concerned that I had done so many short projects that I wouldn't have the stamina to last through a feature. Well, the first movie I did was Darkman. That was 119 days. Army of Darkness was 118 days. We just did 267.
My job is to actually be there and think about the shot, one chain link at a time. And if I go too far into the future, inevitably there's a mistake on the set where I should be. So I live only in the present. It evolves while you're doing it. It evolves while you're making it up. It evolves while they're lens up, while you light it, from take to take. It's constantly changing. Take 4 is not like take 3, and in the Brothers' case, take 57 is not like take 22.
I don't know. It's hard to tell what it really looks like.
People are constantly coming up to Larry and Andy and saying, "What's going to happen in this shot?" And they say, "Give me the viewfinder and give me the actors, and I'll tell you what's going to happen in this shot."
You could do your profile that you like.
Tom profile, you mean? Yeah, but I thought it would be a better cut to go this way if you want to come in on that angle.
It's not until you actually do it that you know what it's going to be. They, like the best directors, put their brains on the screen. They put their own desires and wants and concerns on the screen.
They care more about composition than I care about composition. I mean, that's why they line up every shot with the finder first. They're extremely specific about it. You know, when you short side, you know, when you're framing somebody, they're talking this way and you do this, or you force somebody against, you force people apart, you can just say alienation. I always try to find a way to do whatever they want to do. Sometimes you have to tell them no. Sometimes it's just impossible. I'm sure they even thought about actually building Zion. I'm sure it'll be slightly smaller than Sydney. And let's build it in the middle of the earth. Why not? I'm suing this.
We did the freeway scene in San Francisco because there's enough stuntmen in America to do this freeway scene. And they drive on the right side of the street, and the runway was available here. Once you get past all the physical stuff, is getting the camera in places where it hasn't been in most car chases. But really the hardest part is that Larry and Andy wanted to shoot the sequence in content continuity on a freeway which goes east-west and north-south. Hasn't anybody else told you this stuff? The Burley Brawl is not really a challenge to me, that's a reward. Burley Brawl is a long period of time in a place that I have total control. Perfect size place, perfect facility, plenty of room, enough time and money to prep it. Nice. We got a quad place.
The system working here is sort of a hybrid stereoptic camera.
So they could do head replacement, basically. So you have a stereoptic view of the actors, so they could locate them in space, and they could replace the stuntmen's heads with Hugo's head. And this sequence is because of we wanted a ethnic mix in the crowd of thousands that can't be found in Australia. It's a bit of a hardship sometimes to work in an aircraft hangar because it's not made to be shot. There's like 60 girders crossing right there over Morpheus's head. It drives me crazy sometimes. The Matrix code was originally conceived to look like rain. It was supposed to look like water coming down the screen. So when you actually have rain, you of course want to allude to the Matrix code rain. So you want everything that can look like code to remind you of code. So we wanted fat rain, which we ended up with large nozzles and huge amounts of water. We used some different shutter angles. We used some drop frame stuff. We used strobes. Again, it's always a combination depending on this works for this shot, this doesn't work for that shot. This works for that shot, this doesn't work for that shot. In good effects movies, that's usually what it is. You arrive at any effect, any end product through a number of different means so that as you see it in different points in the movie, you can never quite put it together how it's done. It also, it lends it a life. It looks more organic that way rather than predictable. The lightning is entirely timed to the performance. The first time we ever did lightning was when Morpheus turns around and greets Neo, and the lightning strikes are absolutely specifically timed. In the end, we just cut to the chase and gave them the lightning boxes and let them do the lightning. And being excellent at video games, they were perfect.
Set, and act.
Hey. Count sheep at home.
Why? I get paid to count sheep here.
Are they giving me some dialogue coaching?
You say sheep.
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 Sheep. Sheep.
Hey, I haven't signed a release for this sort of treatment.
You know, I've spent 4 or 5 years on these 3 movies. I've never had any other job for 5 years.
Got a long day.
I don't know. I don't think I can sum it up, really. It's going to be years before I can sum it up. I may name other movies that I think of that are as important. Hopefully I will, but it will probably be the major work of my life. Grip electric camera crews are world class. They're as good as any crew in in the world.
My name's Brownie. I'm one of the key grips on the job.
My name's Reg Garside. I'm the gaffer on Matrix 2 and 3. The electrics in Australia, we look after everything that's got to do with lights, including all the C-stands, the cutters, the gels, the diffusions, the blacks and all that sort of stuff.
Okay. Let's put the water on.
In Australia, the grips are obviously in charge of all the camera movement. You put up the green screens, general support rigging for electrics on set.
Or was it the circuits are off? That's why it didn't work.
We do total support structure for the camera department.
That was good. A little bit later on the glasses.
The movie is so big, so complicated that they run their own fiefdoms.
This sort of comes down as a rimmer, so it should run that way.
I can adjust that while it's up here. Just lock it off there.
We run a 24-hour-a-day grip department, 5 days a week. The scale of these movies is no way you could build this in the morning and pack it up and go home at night.
Brownie has to run his ship, and Reggie has to run his ship, and they consult with me, but we're all three equal. Many, many creative decisions are made solely by them.
Yeah, if we say in the Mega Man.
What Bill does is he tends to leave a lot of the set lighting to us as a lighting department.
Reg moves ahead and lights the sets in advance. We talk about it, but specifically, I don't really know. You know, I want a soft light here, and I want a hard shaft there, and I want there's some explosions, and this has got to happen. And Reggie I can just see him going, okay, I need to get lightning strikes, and it's like flicking them off.
Is that light coming into here?
No, it's not, mate. What I've got your lads used to do for me there is take it off and use atmosphere. When you work with a guy for a year and a half, nearly 2 years, it becomes pretty easy. Your thoughts are almost the same.
He'll light a set, I'll go by and put my 2 cents in, which I've never done with anybody else, really.
We use a lot of soft lights, a lot of bounce lights. There's not very many hard lights. A lot of our sets we've used up to 1,000, 2,000 cans in the roof just to get us up to the light levels we need. Light up, please, Scotty. We had a lot of light up there. We had a lot of light. Just have to move this around, mate. Just need to get another reading on this. We've wanted to light for speed because, we've only got a certain amount of time. So we could shoot virtually any way at any single time. The brothers like to be able to shoot all over the place.
There's one thing I want to say about the grip department. I won't say it on film, Mark.
That was our leader. And the rigs for cable cams and flying cameras was probably the highlight from a gripping point of view of what all the lads done. That's very impressive. And that speed is variable. The expectation that's laid out and passed down the line is obviously ginormous. You've got to do a lot of controlling to keep what they need out of the camera. Matrix introduced us to visual effects of green screen and blue screens.
Yeah, brought into being just a green screen unit or a blue screen unit. And basically their job is to go around and obviously blue and green screen all the stages that we need.
It's a cut.
It's a huge effort to do. You can see this set here, this is in the real world. All the colours, they tend to lean towards blue. So we can't use any blue screen around them because we'll start losing them when we start digitising and mucking around with them in visual effects. So that's why we've gone with green. Vice versa, when we're in the Matrix, it's green, so we have to use blue screens. What we've got here, guys, is we've got a designated wet area and a dry area. All our cables are being kept off the floor because of any mishaps, anything happens. People walking around, they traipse water around with them when it gets wet. There's 700 amps of phase running around underneath all this rigging here, which is a lot of power.
Biggest problem was liaising with special effects, figuring out where their water's going to go, and then making sure that everything that we've got rigged above around the set is fully protected. No one gets electrocuted.
Action!
These guys have upwards of 2 to 3 stages being rigged all at the same time. We've had 160 sets to do on this job. It's been a pretty mammoth task. And these guys here are responsible for that.
Grips and electrics are going to be a very close bond. I never think twice about what's hanging above my head, and that's a credit to them.
Oh, look. What does it say? What?
Over this last 12 months, we've probably crammed about 5 years' worth of film experience just into this 1 year.
Come on together, because you want them to move at the same time, yeah. Through, Sarah sort of goes by her, Morpheus just scoops her, and the moment that Sarah is like, Morpheus turns it on fire,
And you're gonna go that way, and you two guys are gonna go that way.
522, take 5.
Can I take your... Oh my God.
They held Kochek, they wanted everybody to have the feeling that they're like bat people. They could just walk up the walls and walk on the ceilings and have basically a gunfight taking place with our bad guys on the ceiling and our principal actors, the good guys, on the floor.
It's kind of an anti-gravity thing. The bad guys are upside down, running around on the ceiling like insects and cockroaches. Our good guys are peeling around columns, and we end up with a number of individual duels.
But they didn't want to turn the set upside down. They wanted to do it real time so you could see gravity, gun shells coming out, debris falling. Everything was falling the proper direction. So I basically gave that set over to Glenn Boswell and his guys, and they put together these small overhead tracks and practiced stuff up in the gym. We came up with some scenarios. We bounced a few things off each other, and we drew up some plans, and we shot some footage for the brothers, made approvals, and that was their set.
Been working pretty hard for about 2.5 months, trying to develop the moves and get the action and train, because the guys spend a lot of time upside down. So that takes a lot of work just to be able to get acclimatised to that, so they can get in position, wait for cameras to turn over, and then still be able to be conscious, basically, so they can do all their actions. And of course, spend a lot of time with wardrobe, because when we were rehearsing this, we've been at this for a couple of months now, all the problems we had with losing traction, or if the footwear's too heavy, you can't move properly. So they spent a lot of time with wardrobe, so wardrobe developed what they needed and were really helpful in being able to give them clothing that would accommodate their movements.
Chin goes in the hole.
And then he needs to wear his harness under his pants.
It was 7 days of full gunfire and pyrotechnics, and to work out where the characters were placed in the room at any one given point, and the level of destruction as we moved through the room was quite complex.
I've spent, I don't know how many nights with cameras and a model, kind of trying to find the frames, to find where we'd place bullet hits that would work, with the actors being in the supposed position so they'd be safe in frame, that we'd have enough foreground, background, like literally trying to compose just the dots. It took a long time.
I started more like this on an angle, because that way I'm heading, that's the angle. I'm already angled.
and then you just need.
I did a couple of things in one take in there, big things. And you have to remember to do something like that in one take means that the explosive guys have to be in sync with me. The camera, I mean, everybody has to do it, be in sync and get it right. It's not just about me getting it right.
We're just trying to work out Kerry Ann's action is going to impede our camera shot.
So we'll do another rehearsal. We're just going to move the camera closest to its
And now we're going to get into it here. Lens is right in the action. 27 action mil lens.
How are you going to catch me though if I have guns?
I'll catch her. Hey guys, when I catch her, do you want to get the guns before I put her down? You want me to just hold her, take the guns down? What's going to work best for you guys?
It's probably better to get him away from her because that way if she bobbles as he's trying to let her go.
It's very fast-paced. It will cut together like bang, 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 and then we'll be out of it into the disco.
I didn't know anybody here. I made some inquiries before I left the United States about several people, and I interviewed 4 or 5 guys and hired Glenn Boswell, who was the coordinator on the first picture, and the team that he's brought to the movie has been fantastic.
I brought back some of the crew from the first film, and I also brought back some new guys that I'd been working with since the last Matrix, which is about over the last 2 or 3 years.
Those guys are crazy.
The Australians and the Americans have been having a great time on this. Initially, we were sort of a bit sceptical. We thought, oh, the Americans come over, how are we going to get along with them, blah, blah, blah. But it couldn't have been better. Even after 12 months, we still like each other.
I think they're great. I mean, there's a lot of talent here. The enthusiasm level is fantastic, and they're on their own. I mean, again, one person can't do this picture. So Glenn is definitely running his department alongside me.
I think what we need to do next is rig up our 2-to-1 technique up and try our takeoffs.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Just get up there and shorten that as much as you can. So we go straight up and down pull. This time around, it turned out we had the wire team and they had the stunt department. And then we had riggers that would float between the stunt department and the wire team. The wire team took care of the fight work and the kung fu work and the flying within the kung fu scenes, whereas the stunt department did the wire work and the action outside the kung fu. Initially, one of the biggest shots that we do is the opening shot when all the 4 gentlemen here have to take off, have a shot at the same time. And Bobby, who's actually on a rig we developed with the Americans called the Super Core rig, could tell you a bit about that.
It's a gimbal type rig with an arm in the front, and inside there's a ring inside a ring, and you basically can run around and turn any way on the roof, up, down, left, right, while firing guns. It's pretty cool.
Actually, the reason we developed that is to give actual mass to what we do, so there's actually an interaction between the character and the surface we're working with, so it's not light or they don't pendulum away from it, but they actually impact the surfaces as they run up. For instance, when Bobby ran up on the pillar and then on the roof, and we always gave him positive, so he's actually working against the ceiling and the wall, and that's how we've been trying to develop all this action in this hell coat check room.
The best way is to slam me into that
There
hole.
we go, action. And then next one, and action. The track system we've developed evolved really out of all the things we originally tried to do over the last 2 months. Just because we've got a ceiling piece, we're always looking up and we always see the ceilings.
The track that we're actually using, which is just up in the ceiling here, is actually a yachting track, which is used on the 12-metre skiffs. And the cars that we use on this particular track are designed to run freely with ball bearings, so we can pull them and move them quite quickly along the track. We can configure them with pulleys for our flying systems, or with single dropper lines, so that we can be fixed and then just run on a single cable.
Alex has to do a move where actually cartwheels along the top of the roof, using the grid as an impact to push off and keep his momentum going.
Basically, I'm picked from either side here, if you can see. I have going up to 2 cars, which run along 2 tracks, and I can't really touch this piece very much at all, otherwise it will crack, so it makes it quite difficult. And also I'm in a gas mask as well, so I don't really have much peripheral vision.
I have to like kick this guy and he goes through the wall and he gets like stuck into the wall. And every time I did the kick, I had my eyes closed until they said he was okay.
Let's go up with Carrie Ann.
Why is he pointing at his head?
That means I'm fine.
I thought he was saying my head.
It's a diving signal that says I'm all right.
They're just a great group of guys. I never knew stuntmen until this film, and stuntmen and stuntwomen are very, very special people.
You okay?
Yeah, fine.
Physical effects will generate an effect, but using a physical means to achieve the effect.
Now,
we're moving from the type of effects that are normally called for into the type of effects that really were the representation of a comic book coming to life. It was as though totally unnatural things were happening naturally.
Steve's great. You know, like most of the heads of departments, he's really the top of his field in Australia and in this part of the world.
We have an engineering department, gags department, pyro department, and the breakaways department.
And he'd show me what he had in mind, and we bounced a lot of ideas off each other and what we're going to do, and he's built some great rigs. He's got a really good crew.
Okay, we charged up here. Okay. 3, 2, 1, action. Are you just going to say
there? Okay. As he's starting to push, it's disappearing from behind him.
That's what it looks like. That's what I was going to say. Like, it had nothing. Like, when I did it on the wood, it was easy. I could really push off, but there it felt like there was nothing there. Well, it wasn't. Yeah.
It was all that way in between,
Yeah.
so all we've got to do now is try and work out when it's good to actually lose the wall from underneath you.
Action!
Visual effects are fantastic with a predictable nature of something, and becomes more and more difficult if it's less predictable. So physical effects have a very relevant place in producing things that have some chaos attached to them.
We're like scars on someone's face. We give it a bit of harshness or a bit of imperfection.
Working with Steve and his crew, we've worked together so many times that if he tells me what's going to happen, then I believe that's what's going to happen. So which made my job a lot easier, because that was one area I didn't have to worry about.
I've known Steve for, about 4 or 5 years now. But basically started working for him on Matrix 1. When you need a little bit of a direction or you're sort of stuck, you go and see Steve. He'll come in, he'll set you on your path, and usually it's fine and dandy from that point on.
We've got to divide it up. Someone's going to do the files.
Yep.
So I think is KT, maybe KT around.
I think it's going back to
use these
If they're breaking into a wall, we'll develop up a wall and try and get a look that sees them smash into a wall. We rebuild sets quite a lot, but in an effects version of a set, then take out the art department set, put in an effects set. We've got so many different tasks going on at so many different times. By the time we get the information of what we want to see on something like an exploding sentinel, we're almost already shooting the result of that exploding sentinel. So we're kind of working backwards a lot of the time.
And just go in there and sort of score it so you get a couple of more little shards.
All right, so the size that you're looking for is more like if that was divided into 4 or something like that.
Right. Specifically, I would say that we'd want it to happen at the main crack zone.
There's a lot of bullet effects, breakaway banisters, a pyrotechnic sequence. We were making the APU working, it's a 3-ton behemoth. Gimbal arrangement for the cockpits and the motion base for the APU. Statues, walls, something that has required some tricky engineering. Collapsing, breaking armory. There's a lot of things crashing through sets. There's a lot of stuff, and usually paint is still wet when things go down to the set.
Rehearsal and action! Cut!
And from there we go into a whole bunch of other sequences that it just keeps on going. It doesn't stop. It's unrelenting.
Lights up, please, and cut!
Okay, boom.
Okay, fire a shot. 3, 2, 1. And there you go, I'm still here. I was doing fireworks for about 6 years. I've been in the film industry, I think, for about 8 years. Like anything, it's a giant team effort. Luckily, our leader, Steve Courtley's a major pyro head, which is always a helping hand. One thing about these movies, apart from any other I've worked on, the directors clearly know what they want. If you go and show them something which is pretty funky and sort of cool looking, they'll go with it. This pillar we're looking at in the background comes from the railway station. Like most times when we're doing pillar work, there seems to be actors wanting to be right up close to the action when these things fire, and you've got to say to them, you can be there, you're going to be safe, and you don't need eye protection, and that's what we're sort of coming to terms with all the time. Once again, they don't put stunt doubles in. There's a real actors going inside these pillars, and there's a train man firing at them and trying to kill them. This is always the bad joke. You go up to the actors and you say, I'm the explosives person. You just say, hello, you know, you do the old missing fingers trick. Yeah. It's like anything, you can't tell where's hard and where's soft. There's 2 zones in this. There's actually a hard area and there's a soft area. That's half the trick of good special effects is tricking everybody to where the fake starts and the real begins.
3, 2, 1.
Okay, the firing box that we mainly use and have done for a number of years on all the Matrix films has been this one. It's made here in Australia. It's got the ability to fire a multiple sequence in a very fast order. Okay, firing a shot! Firing in 3, 2, 1. This is just an arcing lance, and it gives an effect like an electrical short. That's a blue one, and we've also got a green one as well.
And action.
See these sort of effects twinkling away in the background? Inside the dead sentinels, we did this. It's a little bit more of a subtle effect, a little bit less smoke, but it's basically a short circuit type look. Trains have been a bit of a major thing in these movies. Firing, 3, 2, 1. For all effect, that emulated the train wheels locking up. This one here was used in the Majonian main deck, firing
3, 2, 1. Pretty simple. It's basically titanium and some gunpowder, and we made lots of those and tried lots of them on set. They became quite useful. This is another little spark device. This is called a Z. Firing in 3, 2, 1. That gets used a lot, once again, and there's a big crash scene or something. Okay, I'm going to fire one off to start with. Okay, that's the look of a Z. And I'll go into a multi-shot at 200 milliseconds, so I'll just wrap through. Firing in 3, 2, 1. It's a typical look of a ricochet bullet. This is something we made for once again, the Mahjongnian. I wouldn't suggest anybody at home attempting this. This is a good little spark device. Firing. Now we're up in the rafters, up above the set with these, and we had our crew members firing these down on the actors. We don't know whether they were trying to hit them or not, but the actors didn't seem deterred by this. And of course, the most important part is safety. Safety in an environment like this. There's no smoking, there's no open flame, there's no mobile phones. It's been drummed into everybody from the start. Safety, safety, safety.
You'll note that it's covered in a matte surface, which is thermal camouflaging. It's designed to shoot around corners. We need guns, more guns.
Here we have the weapons which the lead characters use for probably the biggest shootout in the film. These weapons are nearly all highly prohibited here in Australia. This is the latest G36. German assault rifle.
Designed and built in Australia, I might add, by some of the most intellectually forward people in the industry.
Morpheus is armed with an MP5K and a aimpoint red dot sight. Seraph with a Browning BDM, and Trinity with a Beretta 92 compact.
I don't like the gun. I don't like the gun at all. Because you have to worry when you're dealing with guns. You have to be careful, and you have to really question and look and check.
The weapons are armed and in, 1 round apiece.
Ah, I don't like it. I don't like having bullets in it.
Okay.
Sorry.
So that acts as a completely independent unit. One character, Pinball, is carrying 2 Browning BDMs. Another character carrying 2 Glocks. A character carrying 2 Berettas. The man at the gun check packing a Scorpion. Can have a 100-round drum saddle magazine.
Multiple caliber.
The brothers have chosen an array of weapons that cover from the turn of the century on up. Weapons which are either well-known and have classic looks or are very new and are likely to have classic looks in the future. The M16, the Uzi submachine gun,
The Australian F1,
Mauser,
MP5, 9mm submachine gun,
Nambus,
1928 Thompson, HK21 automatic rifle, micro Uzis, the G36, the Patchett, bazooka, Kepler,
Beretta, Colt revolvers,
Scorpion 36mm grenade launcher. And if you put it in a beer and go, it'll suck it all up.
That's it.
That's the one.
There you go. What do you call it? This is the gaffer gun. I'm an extra.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a bit weird seeing everybody dressed in fetish in the daylight. It's a bit like the vampires have been let out of their cages or something.
What am I expecting?
Yeah.
I'm expecting to find some video recorders that I can take away into a little corner.
I'll give you another one. What are their names?
Yeah, Andy and Larry Wachowski.
Oh, I've never heard of them.
I actually dance with a snake, but I'm not dancing with the snake in these films.
I used to be a showgirl, but my name's not Laura.
I'm an aspiring actor.
I got it permed especially for The Matrix.
A lot of these people, it's their second nature because they're party animals, so I think we're all used to it, yeah.
So I've been standing around with my perm all day, just waiting to be seen by the world.
I felt for those extras because most of them all were wearing their own costumes, and you know, there's a lot of latex and a lot of PVC, and a couple people like fainted and had to people were allergic to the latex and realized it too late, after they were in it.
We've got to polish up all of the latex, and they weren't wearing latex, they were wearing PVC, so they're as shiny as they can get.
We wanted to have the feeling of fairy tale characters. So we made people that looked like satyrs and ponies, and there's kind of a melding of the human and the inhuman as part of their character.
Well, so much for my potential political career.
Okay, these two gorgeous, lovely ladies. Why don't you be see a young woman? Sir. Now, all right, you're going to go back. This gentleman will get underneath your little kneecap and push your body up in the air. Will you stay high at all times? I am the Statue of Liberty. Bring your body through, arch up, and growl, and maybe a few of those arms out the front, ma'am. No, I see it's definitely here, sir, with the shoe on your mouth. If you had a thong or a sneaker, there'd be another story, wouldn't it?
You are now Group A. You are required Thursday. You will be required Friday. Cool. All right, well, you're with us for the week. Let's go.
Oh, this is heaven. I'm in heaven.
Spiritualism and love. Was that about 50 that you just sent me?
Can I just have everyone's attention there for a second? So just give us a bit of quiet just for 1 minute. Hey, so first of all, welcome. Thanks for coming in today. I know Cha-Cha has been working with some of you, and we have a group here in the centre, and that. So maybe the people from the back come forward a bit, so there's at this end position, there's a good, nice, tight ring around them.
Here, hang on to that, lean back, hold this position, and even if you stretch back, do you understand stretching back this way?
It's rehearsal without the camera.
Good girl.
Yeah, it's good. There's a lot of interesting people here. There's lots of different categories, and goths and ferals and modern primitives and V&D type people. They tend to stick to their own kind of community rather than bring them together like they've done for this movie.
Hey, so the big note from that tape was you've got to look meaner. So you're hot, you're sweaty, you're tired, you're mean. Check the gate, means good take.
We had this Zion scene that was all about beauty and expression and love and passion, and then we had this Hell Club scene, which was about just the darker side of that, I suppose, and those people were under very, very hardcore circumstances. They worked hard.
This is the last sequence in the Matrix trilogy, and we've had 5 rehearsals.
We're standing in what we call the Matrix building, which is looks a bit like a barn, so we call it the Sky Barn. It was based around the building Eon, where our offices were in Venice. Originally, it didn't have the extensions, which you can see up there, which are the illuminated sidewalls. We've added those so that it was easy to do a fight, because it's a fight set, like so many of them. So it's geared around a lot of wire work. As you can see behind me, there's a lot of breakaways. So we've tried to create an interesting sort of environment for Larry and Andy to work in.
This is going to be a three-person compilation. We have Darko Tucson, our other Neo double, doing the high fall between the two walls. We've got Keanu Reeves doing the last dragon slide. And I'm just going to do this little piece coming through the breakaway wall, hitting the ground, and starting Keanu's slide.
We're going to drop someone off this truss through this breakaway wall here, and it's going to look really good. This is actually the floor. It's set sideways, so we fall straight through, so you get the really hard effect of it just like hammering through the walls. It's all actually on its side, and the camera's all going to be on its side as well. So it's about 25 feet, I think, to the floor, all up. Yeah, through the two walls and to the pads down there.
I'm going out to my spot now. I'm set to go under the truss. Okay, I'm set. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, action!
It's all right, eh?
Wait, behind the scenes here, sound technical.
So I worked this out on the computer last night, you know. I figured about 6 guys on the end of a rope with a piece of cable, and if we all match speeds, you may make it. If you only notes from the brother, and you don't have to do this rehearsal, the more sideways you can come through, the better.
Oh, come through? Okay.
Happy to do another one?
Yeah.
No problem. That's just a warm-up, isn't it?
3, 2, 1, go!
Good wire team.
Chad.
What am I kicking with?
The totem pole. You know, the...
Oh, Jesus.
And go, Toga.
A little slower.
That's impossible.
What's the stunt here, Dave?
It is a hand pull ratchet back through the breakaway window.
3, 2, 1, go!
They'll be hooking a line through the window that pulls me straight. The height was the major issue. You have really, really little control if you're on a wire. So forward or backward doesn't matter, it's the guys pulling.
What are the keys to your performance?
Don't push off too soon. React to the kick correctly. Keep the body position that the brothers want.
Camera is set.
I'm out of my mind. I'm out of my tree.
From an acting point of view, it was the most difficult part of the film for both of us, I think. We were fighting in the mud as well, so it was mud and rain. But by that stage, the fight had become more like flailing around, you know. So, and the rain was so heavy that it was hard to speak without starting to have bubbles and streams of water running out of your mouth. Keanu was lying on the ground with the rain hitting his eyes. You couldn't hear yourself speak, so finding the right tone in there was really difficult because I had no notion of what I sounded like, and that was bizarre and basically blew a whole day shooting because of that. I had a dreadful day in the crater. I've never had a day like that on a film set before.
That was bad. I mean, that was just, I mean... The ladies took very good care of me, wardrobe and hair and makeup. You know, they gave me the thermal stuff and they poured warm water around me. The worst part of it was the rain because of the position of my head. They made an adjustment in my head and then I just closed my eyes and I just relaxed and let the water come.
About a year ago, we wandered around Sydney looking for streets that we felt could suit the Matrix. But as we were walking around, we were looking for somewhere where we could build the crater, an interesting intersection. And as it turned out, it was the same intersection that we saw at the end of the first movie. And we decided we'll use that as the background for the end of this scene.
Thinking about the wrestling pose that Smith can be standing in while you're down on the ground.
The crater that we've built is quite dramatic in that we've tried to make it look like a bomb blast.
Basically what we've done is taken a whole series of rock molds off actual rock, put them together, stitch them up, and then blow urethane foam into them, which then gets pulled out and applied to the wall. It all has to be soft so that the principal cast don't do themselves a nasty injury. And as you can see around the top edge, there's a lot of kind of building rubble, which has come as they tear the buildings apart as they come down.
The challenge was getting a hell of a lot of water in and getting a hell of a lot of water out. We've got 6 rain heads up above and a lot of water getting dumped down the walls of the crater as well. Probably about 6,000 litres a minute or so on this set.
Join in the fun, the mud fun.
That's the right one.
You want me to mud up my own crotch,
I
darling?
would love you to. Look, I'll even give you the crotch.
How sensitive I am.
It's just a clay-based product that we've mixed ourselves. We sort of picked a colour in conjunction with the art department, something that's safe and clean to use.
We're going to have a bit of a fight in it and have rain going. Did you have to study mud and stuff then? It was learn on the job.
I'm an electrician, actually.
Makes beautiful patterns. I'd like to put some paper in.
You wait till the rain goes on.
Is it better then?
You wait. You just wait.
Oh, down the spine.
Fighting for 5 solid months.
Let me in. Let me go. Come on. I'll get it this time. I'm ready. Come on. Come on, James. Send me in.
Right now we are shooting scenes related to the highest altitude. That's about 2,500 feet above the Matrix City.
After it became apparent that it was completely impractical to try and shoot zero-G inside a plane with a film crew, we went into research and development as to how they could fight in mid-air, and it was decided that we'd basically end up putting the stunt performers and the cast performers at one point on a thing that we called the tuning fork rigs.
You know, we're just always in the harnesses, and after like 18 hours, it kind of hurts most of the time.
How hard is this thing to operate?
There's a lot of inertia in it.
a good 30 foot away from me, so whatever rotation he has in there, he builds up a lot of inertia and trying to control that. It's actually quite hard.
The way to make it look like they were fighting in mid-air was to cover the back of where they were in blue screen so the cityscape could be mapped in. So we ended up building essentially a huge perspex egg that we called it.
It doesn't look like an egg, but originally was sort of designed like a, an ellipse or a half sphere surrounding the characters. It is now, for practicality purposes, half a box.
We had a few scenes like this in Bound, you guys. Jennifer Tilly up there in the rig.
This set is like 4 times the budget of Bound.
Hey, stand by.
Good. Slide, guys. Let's take everybody back to number 1.
Yeah.
Okay, all the cues play out, but we're going, this is like quarter speed, guys. Quarter speed.
I'm feeling fairly paranoid today. It's a good thing we're not in America because I have a gun. And, because there's no set here, it's just blue. I'm not sure about the blue shade that Mr. Pope picked.
Rather than light whole surfaces, sometimes you can just put a sheet of mylar, a mirror that reflects the screen adjacent to it, and you get a precise match. So it's exactly the same color, brightness, and all that. It's very sort of economical way of expanding your blue screen and or doing like tricky spaces like that. I mean, like pretty good actually, a big room that's blued out with no lights actually on to make it happen. Hey, it's John Gaeta again. This is the anatomy of the Super Punch as seen in Revolutions. The Super Punch was one of the first pieces of concept art that Jeff Darrow drew for Larry and Andy. I believe that was one of the very first boards ever revealed to Joel and to Warner Brothers as the future on the horizon. And the funny thing about it is that it was a punch. It's a guy getting punched in the face. Steve Scroche drew it, and within his drawings came a lot of understanding of the graphic nature of the rainstorms and the use of water as an explosive element. This particular motion capture was pretty awesome reference material just to see how the body contorts in a roundhouse. Almost all virtual shots were planned in advance through visualization so that we could figure out what could be photographed as a reference or an actual component ahead of time. So this is just basically a 3D planning guide. Even from the very first bullet time shot we did in Matrix, we'd try to photographically shoot the same shot as best we could, but almost in every single case, it wasn't temporally correct. In the early days of trying to figure out how we would shoot photographic elements for this, things that I checked out included some documentary footage of Fight Club, one of my favorite companies in the business. Booth, located in Paris, had approached the final shot where Ed Norton shoots himself in the face, and they had used some high-powered air jets they shot into his mouth. We tried that, and it worked very well in terms of a reference of how flexible Hugo's face was. Additionally, I looked at Norwegian bare-fisted fighting. It was very severe. It was a great reference of guys getting punched directly in the head for real, and we really needed to know what that was like. We decided to make a sculpture that demonstrated the three-dimensional outcome of the hit. So we took a facial cast from Hugo, and an artist deformed that sculpture to sort of capture the caricature-like nature of the drawing. We put it into the universal capture system, so it was actually cross-referenceable with Hugo's real head that would do the performance after that. And one of my favorite things about effects is this sort of stuff. It's like experimentation. You try to manage experimentation as controlled chaos. In visual effects, you're going to find a lot of really funny preliminary studies. Usually, it's kind of a healthy exercise to exaggerate the idea of the effect and whittle it back to what you want. This is a rudimentary analysis of ripples. What you're looking at here is a study of rain. Like everything else, the rain had a list of specifications from Some of the stuff you may have seen with the documentary of the actual photographic part of this fight, you know, the chubby rain needed to effectively be, you know, cascading lines so that when you looked at certain angles, you'd have this sort of graphic moire-like effect. When we worked out the interaction with the fist, we basically wanted it to be like a train smashing into giant glass rods. In examining documentary footage of guys being hit for real in the face, there is this thing that occurs right off, which is like an inch or so displacement of the skull in the direction of the punch, and that has a lot to do with the impact and the pain. So we had to figure out how much to displace his head and whether that displacement was going to also have some kind of overlapping effect with the ripples from the impact. So here's the final shot in all its glory. The characters are both virtual. The background is entirely virtual. The rain is all computer generated. The heads of Hugo and Keanu are based on the UCAP, but Hugo's head was augmented and mutated for the impact. I'd have to say we're really satisfied with it. We like the end better than the beginning, but the beginning is just a little pathway into your payoff.
This is the Nebuchadnezzar on approach, requesting access through Gate 3.
Nebuchadnezzar, this is Zion Control. Maintain present velocity and stand by. The Nebuchadnezzar is down. Bay 7.
Understood.
Zion was kind of a purposeful contrast to the minimalist contemporary vibe of The Matrix.
Zion's semi-retro kind of design that carries across from the almost Victorian period or the 30s of when they built the Bay Bridge or the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and big industrial kind of works. There's that kind of engineering quality.
Zion is the kind of society that is, in a way, a free society, a democratic society, where everyone inside that society understands and knows what their role is.
It's a world that is multi-ethnic, and primarily, I would say the majority of people are people of color.
I thought the representation of all the ethnic groups was just, you've never seen that in a science fiction movie at that capacity.
It's mostly like African American or Black and Hispanic and Asian and all it's just a real mix of people that are non-white or Caucasian, which is what you usually see in most films.
So Zion, I think, is one of those rare occurrences in Hollywood where it reflects what I guess we're calling multiculturalism now.
We're standing in the sewer set. So this is kind of like at the very bottom of the S-bend. So if you imagine the S-bend in your bathroom down the bottom where all the rings and the crap ends up, this is it. You're at the very bottom of it, amongst all the Rio and the crap that's been washed down here over like 1,000 years. And we figured that at this point the world had got so successful because of the kind of underclass of machines, their slave class, they'd been able to have these big mega cities, and these big sewers were here to support those big cities. The whole sewer might have been made up of a whole lot of little pipes, which are still huge pipes, like the one on our left, my left here, is a huge pipe where, you know, maintenance vehicles and things like that can go. But it's a difficult set to kind of work in. I think it's a really difficult set for the crew. It's very tight, very confined, and as you can see, all are very strong. You have to be very strong to carry all these big pieces of concrete around. Zion's made up, if you like, of a landing area, which we call the dock, where all the ships, all the hovercraft come in and land. And it's a defence area for the population of Zion.
So I think the first drawing I did of the dock, I don't know, it took me 2.5, 3 weeks or something, because it was so labor intensive and figuring out the perspective. And Owen had done like a schematic of what the basic shape and what the levels were, because it was almost like steps that would lead down to the main like sewer drain, if you want.
And it's kind of like a huge septic tank that's been built into a landing base, where there's cranes and machinery and workshops for working on these hovercraft.
I put like a railroad track around it, because I kept thinking of, you know, have you ever seen like a railroad junction where all the trains come in? And I put that crane on top of the elevator. See, there's action, even when there is no action, there's movement.
And then you go down below the dock via elevators through bedrock where the command centre is, where Harmon has his office and Locke has his command centre. And then you go down below the command level, you go down into the bottomless pit. And it's like a giant sinkhole, and it's like 7,000 feet deep, which is where 250,000 people live.
It's good to be home.
We kind of set it up so that the people were above the council. A democracy, in that you had representatives there from each of the ships or representatives from each level of the bottomless pit. So what we have suggested, without being too accurate, is that this structure, whoever built it, we've added a kind of patina of the centuries. We've got a lot of rust. They used polystyrene and they laid it onto the flash and they burnt it all with a heater. And you had this fantastic metal sense, because all of Zion's basically metal, there's no wood. So all the chairs that are in that set, they are all chairs out of the Merovingian's restaurant.
It was kind of a Colosseum kind of space to an extent, but basically it had to be all metal. So it felt like you were, contained in a tin can.
And then you go down below the council to the residence area. There are all these kind of faceless buildings where the residents of Zion live. And every 43 metres there's a major kind of level, and in between it there are 10 levels of houses ringing around this naturally formed sinkhole. There's a little model which is the extent of what we will build. It's all made of steel, it's quite structural. There'll be a green screen here and above it at each end, and the visual effects department will build this repetitive kind of design that it has around to create the illusion of the full kind of residence area.
It is this thrown together, makeshift world that these people have been forced to live in, and they made the best of a fairly terrible situation.
Where's my pussy? Hey! Hey! Get to see human ingenuity and how they built up, this world that exists and as many of the conveniences that they could have. Loved it, and it was really great. Like, they have the food growing, the mushrooms. They were like really homey, like all these like handcrafted like little things. Like maybe they all put it together themselves.
So in the first film, everyone lived in a little red house on the outside of a big cylinder. There was a power plant, a pod. And in this film, everyone lives on the inside of a cylinder in a little red hole.
Basically, Zion, it's the power pod's in reverse. Instead of projecting from a cylinder, they're living inside a cylinder. They've escaped from one environment to basically live in the same environment. Although they're free, and that's an important part of it.
At the bottom of Zion, there's a huge cave or cavern which the people of Zion use as a gathering place.
Here, Larry and Andy wanted to have the feeling of the natural earth, like we're going almost kind of like back to the womb. Something like a church or a big cathedral.
The super cool part about that particular space was creating it based off the pictures we found in National Geographic about massive underground caves and a lot of photographs of Bryce Canyon sort of rock formations.
The cave is probably half a mile long. Through the use of visual effects, John Gator and his team will increase the height of what we have built to 300 odd feet right in the center at its highest point. Luckily, it's got fabulous acoustics, so someone just whispering can be heard all the way down the back end.
I give you more.
And then you go down below the caves and they have what's called engineering.
The engine room was sort of beautiful, strangely beautiful, heavily detailed, and almost convoluted underground world. Effectively a steam energy plant that is where the geothermal energy is derived to power up the city. We based some of those environments off of Jeff Darrow drawings.
Some of these drawings are like this big, and I'd have like this much done after a day.
My theory is that the machines purpose-built Zion for the human beings, but you have to have balance within the system. so that you could have a matrix. Within that, there has to be a sense of freedom or rebellion, so you have to have a Zion.
The neb was like an important part in the first film. It was like when Neo first comes aboard.
This is the main deck.
In the first film, it was the only ship we saw, and in this film, there's many more ships. Some big ships on this, some small ships. There's the Magellan, the Vigilant, the Osiris, and the Caduceus, and the Logos.
Everybody wanted to draw ships, and some of them are pretty funny.
Do you have any of the, you have your little library of ships by any chance?
Yep.
Okay, we'll show you that.
It's a small class ship.
We're not using that one though, right? Because it's like, they thought it was a little too buggy.
I don't know.
Some of the guys you can't get out of that Star Wars mold, you know?
What do you mean by that?
They look like they're made by GM. They look like Datsuns with wings on them or something. But these things had to look like they're put together and built out of other ships and rebuilt and restructured. And
the whole concept that these machines might have been around for 1,000 years. And then you sort of have to look at it, well, if it's been for 1,000 years, when was it last serviced?
And each one had a different function, so they should look different.
These are all the concepts that have been turned into 3D models. The Osiris, known as the small class ship. It's called the Hunter ship, kind of a little bit more junked up.
The Logos has probably been the most recently serviced, but you don't know when. The amount of grubbiness on it is slightly pulled back a bit.
So it's like the sports car. It gets the Ferrari. This was an alternative design for the Magellan, which was dropped in favour of a Jeff Darrow drawing.
I got to do the Magellan, which is the one I really wanted to do because it's the hammer of God, It's the gunship, it's the Potemkin, it's the Bismarck. I looked at a lot of like Panzer tanks. It's sort of based on an Aztec hammer. If you look at it, it's almost an axe. And I put these scales on it, these big metal plates that they'd put on the size of Panzers and stuff.
There's a landing pad for nearly every ship that Rob has modeled that's sort of shaped around the basic, silhouette that the ship is.
The actual docks themselves, I tried to make them look sort of like aircraft carriers.
Nebuchadnezzar, you are cleared through Gate 3 to Bay 7.
Roger that, Control.
Basically, when the ship gets close to surfaces, it repels an opposite magnetic charge, and we're going to augment that with a nice little blanket, a cushion of electrostatic energy.
Colin? Yes? Can you switch that on, please, mate?
The Neb is a four-man crew, which is why I think Lincoln must be a super, super smart guy. Because in the first one, they had 7 other people there. They had all these other people to do all these jobs while some people were jacked in. Well, now, 3 of my crew, they're jacked in, and then it's me. So I'm monitoring the Matrix. I must be maintaining the ship, and like, he must be all over the place.
What do we call these things?
LEDs.
If I was to be honest and frank, the ship main decks are my least favourite. They're difficult to shoot in. There's a lot of, people around monitors, a lot of people lying in chairs. Not to give the movie magic away, but it's the same ship, that Owen very ingeniously turns around to make it look something completely different each time. He's done a pretty amazing job too.
The Nebuchadnezzar, the Magellan, and the Vigilant were all the same floor base and with the same chair mechanisms, but with different cores.
This has been changed into another ship, right?
Yeah, this is turning into the Vigilant.
That's where we turn all the chairs around backwards. A bit of redressing.
As far as I know, the upholstery goes red.
Used to be the Neb, now it's the Vigilant. When was it built? 2106.
The plaque off the Nebuchadnezzar had on it Mark III number 2.
This is the core, where we broadcast our pirate signal and hack into the Matrix.
And my intention when I picked those numbers was to say this is like a Jaguar, which is like a Mark IV Jaguar. But people took this as a reference to the Psalms, you know, Mark III number 2. And if you actually read those passages now, they actually have a kind of a relevance to Nebuchadnezzar. Well, Nebuchadnezzar was our ship, and Nebuchadnezzar was a powerful king, and he used to, you know, smite down cities. Well, the Nebuchadnezzar was a battleship. So there was a kind of a strange subtext within the subtext, in a sense. This set as it stands is the Nebuchadnezzar. It looks pretty much identical to what it did in 1998, except it's been altered in a couple of places where it was damaged by the Sentinels. The interesting thing that happened with the Nebuchadnezzar at the end of the first film, it was in fact the only set that we were allowed to keep. And we packed it up, it was put into storage, and then Hugh Baderup, who's the senior art director, he was asked some months later, just before the film was released in America, to put it into shipping containers and ship it over to Los Angeles, and then they used the ship for doing publicity interviews. The design originally came from Jeff Darrow. He did a series of beautiful drawings of how all this should look and work. The idea of this ship is it's like a hovercraft, and that in the centre of the ships, all of the ships that come from Zion, there's what we call a core. Essentially, that is a direct conduit into the matrix. If I was the operator, I'd be taking my needle out, I'd sterilise it, I'd move it all up out of the way, if I can, and I'd take my needle in here. Now, Tim here is my able assistant. I would insert it with force into there and lock it off. He's now locked in. So essentially the monitors, at the moment, they've got generic graphics on them, but various points, they can have exit and entry points. A lot of the time we could pull up on this screen the health status of the particular character who's in the chair. So there might be heartbeat rates, ECG readings. If we go over to Link's chair, you can do various bits and pieces by, some of these screens are interactive, so I can hit them and I can open up another camera, as you can just see that went from one bit to another, brought out this, I can hit it, and then normally what's going to load up is going to be just the chair. Wow, this is fabulous as well. You can indicate, so this kind of gives you a general idea of where there are people in the chair. So this is seat 7, this would be Morpheus's chair, the captain of the ship, and this indicates at the moment, because it's green, that he is in the matrix. Above it we have other screens, and Link or AK can pull various bits of information up. So Link has at his disposal all this huge database, so he can pull up these various screens, and this one is indicating, I think, something in the mountains, which is from another scene with Neo. And then, so for specific scenes, there are specific graphics being generated by Tim and his team.
Everything else.
Should I grab that?
Yeah.
Screen graphics.
It's sort of somewhere between basic sec deck and a special effect. So there's times when it's literally just background stuff, no one pays any attention to it. It's literally just some blinking lights over the shoulders of the actors, but there's other times when the whole scene is based around what they're viewing on the screens.
His neural patterns don't read like someone who's in a coma.
We're known as the wallpaper department.
Colour and movement, that's all it's about.
This is the screen graphics department. We're preparing for a scene in the rerouting facility computer room where the Vigilant crew come in and try and hack the main system. And so, you know, we not only have to set up the environment that they're in, but, you know, on their screens, the interface and what actually happens on their machines as they're trying to hack this mainframe system. So, you know, there's a fair bit of research that goes into all of this. We visited a power station and got some reference images. Just the kind of stuff you'd expect to see in one of these places, close-ups of the various screens. And it's always great to have, you know, design based on a sense of realism. We'll be producing graphics for the Nebuchadnezzar, the Majolna and the Vigilant, and of course the logos. Graphics will be one thing that's used to help differentiate and give a sense that, oh yes, we are in a different ship now. It does help in that space to have a different sense of colour and shapes.
On the Ned main deck there's 52 screens, 17 on links, and then each chair around has another 5 screens on each one.
It's supposed to be purely utilitarian stuff that just needs to be there to make the ship operate, to monitor the crew members when they get broadcast into the Matrix. And so it's a balance between making them look interesting and engaging and yet be very sort of functional.
We're in the operations room of the screen graphics. What you've got basically is 27 VCRs, 10 DVDs and 8 computers, a big matrix switch as well, and about 140 cables. We have spy cameras up there like above each chair, and also for us to see what's going on. We have patches in from the film camera so we can see what's going on. And we sit down here with all our consoles and make them all work and allow for the actor to be interactive with them.
Keep moving, 65th floor.
A lot of the screens are all touch panels, so they can actually physically make the graphics work from where they are. So if they have a fit of spontaneity and they need to touch all the screens, they'll actually react.
They were a real great tool to have because they give you something to do as I'm doing things, or a sequence of things that go on, you know, and so it gives you real action. You're not just faking it.
We spent a fair bit of time trying to get a system going in the cockpits where we hooked a joystick up to the main control that then got copied out to like 6 to 8 computers.
The advantage of that was that the actors didn't have to try to follow the graphics. The graphics would follow them. Because if you've got a flying indicator that's going like that and they're going the other way, or it's sort of all not matched up. So the idea was to take it so the actors wouldn't have to kind of focus in on the graphics too much. They'd just follow their own movements. On the Majolna, there's a series of gun bays when they're under attack from the Sentinels. This one of one of the gunners. We have to think, well, what would a gunner need to combat these machines? So this is a mock-up that we produced very early in the piece, where we thought that each one of these screens might be an individual gun. Since then, we've had discussions with the directors and they're saying this might be the center screen, but we want to see some other things around it. So we go on, subdivide that, you know, those screens to provide information about, you know, temperature, ammunition, some sort of radar system, a map of the tunnel system. So we have to come up with each one of these and animate it, and that can be really difficult.
Commander Locke, I got incoming.
How can that be? In the command centre, we know that these guys are going to be wanting or would be looking at particular information about the dock, what's happening in the dock, the siege with the Sentinels, and so we've created a bunch of radars that give them a real-time update of what's going on in the dock. Then there's information about the descent of the diggers. Basically, it's a matter of finding something appropriate for the set and for that moment in the film.
I didn't have to suspend my imagination so much because I really had everything right there, you know, working for me. It's fantastic.
Screen graphics.
Contact 9 minutes, next call.
We wanted to do an old-fashioned fist fight, John Wayne fist fight. It's dark, it's fun, it's pushy.
try not to move too much, right? Just a little bit.
Yeah.
I just want you to go at full pace. So, however, if he was going to shorten his start mark up, that he can, once he sees that you're about to get there, he can just like bound on the gun.
This is the only fight that takes place in the real world in which they have no powers. They're not in the Matrix. They're not writing code. They haven't injected any information into themselves. They're just fighting like two human beings would fight, like dogs.
I'll be like in here. Yeah. I'll let you put your hand on me.
I just don't want to have to find something.
Right.
You know what I mean? If he's got to swing and I've got to find something.
You have to duck one. Basically, he's gonna have to swing. You have to lift your arm, and everyone's gonna have to be in the right spot.
And then can we use something that's not steel?
Yeah, of course. We have some pretty good props.
I can see
Feel good to wear that for a day?
I don't know.
And action. And I got to punch here?
Just punch right in the chest. We never see his face. We won't see a connection.
Oh, okay.
No wires, no special powers that the Matrix might provide. It's dirty. Using anything available. Bits and pieces, sharp objects, hot things, hard steel.
You looking forward to that?
I am looking forward to that.
That fist fight takes place in sparks, so it's strobe lights all over the place, and so it makes the fight really surprising. You see blurred glimpses of a fight, which makes it really jarring and horrible and very real in a way. It actually looks like a real fight. It really looks like they've hurt themselves, and they get bloody, and their fists are bloody, and it's like all the things you never see in a real fist fight.
If you like really big physical things, blowing up, and if you like that stuff, yeah, it's very exciting.
There are no little shots. There's no like, hey, we're going to do the simple scene now. We're going to do there isn't any such thing.
It's so large in my imagination, I can't see. I have got no idea about how it's going to feel.
Yeah.
It's a very involved and very labor-intensive sequence with so many people and so many hundreds of crafts all working together.
We had this really strong sense this was one of the most complex sequences that anybody had ever attempted. I mean, it was going to involve everything, live action and miniatures and motion base, large sets, lots of CG, really complex scenes. And we had to make all of that fit together so that you never felt like you were seeing all these different kinds of technologies.
This is for a CG character in the battle in Zion. And, yep. Will be replaced with I guess, computer-generated images of us.
It's a rig they used on another film. We're calling it the PMS strip, but it means please make it stop.
I thought, oh, this could be very handy as a sentinel arm.
We're actually going to be able to pick people up and just whip them around like they're on the end of a tentacle and flip them off. We did it what they referred to as mocap, motion capture, where the guys had sensors on them and they went through the stunt action and it was all captured on computer.
Beyond 30 feet or so, we think that we can trick the eye pretty easily. And so all of that cyberware stuff and UCAP and all that was really to make all these peripheral characters and secondary action around the battle.
We have points on the person's body. And we have all these 28 cameras. Each one looks at the points and it figures out where it is in space. So we take each of these points, and if you have 2 points on your hand and you're moving like this, we see these points like this. If you want to be able to take a computer image and make it look exactly like a person, how it moves, you have to do this motion capture process. You just have to.
A little bit more off to the side earlier, like so he gets picked up and he gets taken over here and shucking around? Yeah, like he just went woof.
Right, listen up. It changes that. It'll flick up and we'll go a diagonal.
The thing I love about motion capture is that this system is the closest thing to the Neb docking chairs that we have. Actors come down here, we put sensors on them, and we put them directly in the computer.
Stand by,
A little closer to the real Matrix.
John. Rolling on take 4. Ready. Speed.
And
Great, Glenn. Are you all right?
Yeah.
Great.
3, 2, 1.
The way we could change that around a little bit too would be to run something behind the bunker.
Oh, yeah. Do you want a walkway like that then?
We're going to keep to the horizontal and vertical sort of orientation like that.
Yeah, a couple like that.
We chose to go with miniatures because we had a lot of destruction to do.
You can't beat it for getting tactile interaction when things are blowing up or being destroyed or smashed. You get a lot of stuff for free right in front of camera.
Most of the things that are being built primarily involve special effects, physical effects.
There's one element in here that's not quite right. It's a giveaway, then you're not going to believe it. You certainly see older films where they tried certain visual effects and it's a dead giveaway. And it usually always has to do with water, smoke, or fire.
It should look seamless. I mean, you shouldn't really be able to tell the difference between live action visual effects and miniatures.
I wanted to draw stuff so you could see how it worked, and so that if they built it, it wasn't just impressions of things.
All right, there, do that.
Okay.
Any questions?
Nope. We'll get art from the art department, and also art department will generate a mock-up model, a 3D miniature of what we're going to be building. From that, they then generate blueprints like these here that they use in live action, and they also generate the animatic models. And then the animatic models can be handed back to us, and we'll do model unit blueprints from those. And then we'll also do laser cuts and CNC files from those. Adam and I will take our AutoCAD files from the computer room in there, and we'll run them through a program that'll translate all the CAD data into an actual tool path that tells the head where to go. Throw in a new sheet. These are going to be lightning rods inside the dock area where the hovercrafts land.
And then we're also going to be storing it and pre-breaking it strategically so that in the scene in which this is in, it's a crash sequence of the Mjolnir, it'll break realistically.
All these amazing people working and real artists working and real craftsmen working. We have the most talented crew. It's just phenomenal. You know, and it's not all computer. Nothing against computers, though.
So this is the final result of all the work that the whole team does. You know, things like this grill, all the very intricate little planar details, they're all laser cut. A lot of these walls here, and then the model makers come in and all the little greebly details and the texture and rivets and stuff, they've added all those and kind of made the whole thing work.
This model's about 4 months of work, averaging about 12 people a day.
Like the first team that worked on this one were the welders.
Solid carpentry, framing it up.
They'll build all the core structures out of wood and steel.
There's a lot of cast pieces on here that went through the mold room.
Then, of course, we have the paint crews that will do a lot of the texturing and painting, and then we also have the electricians that'll do all the miniature lighting.
Things are changing up to the last minute in this crane topple shot. Some angles are changing, some dynamics and how it's going to fall is changing. So the tests we did 7 months ago with the big wooden mock-up of this crane don't really apply much anymore. So with 1 day left to go before we shoot it, we're trying to guess what's going to happen differently if we turn this at a different angle and where it's going to land. Even though this doesn't tell us much, it tells me a little bit about how it's going to land and where it's going to fall.
Everything we make, we blow up.
Let's roll cameras.
At the same time, we were going to make a miniature of a particular object that was going to explode, like the gate of the dock. If we were going to make that anyway, then we were going to try to get that to be as good looking as possible and then photograph it to use as textures for computer graphics. So there are a lot of CG objects that are going to be in the dock environment that were based off of photographic textures of the same miniatures. So it's kind of a hybrid approach.
Go!
Now!
It's really an epic sequence. I mean, it is just huge. And it's unusual because it uses everything that a filmmaker has at his disposal to create something gigantic. It is full of live action photography, integrated with CGI photography, integrated with miniature work.
Halfway up, all sabers.
Just below. Through tremendous breakthroughs in visual effects, breakthroughs in composite photography, breakthroughs in every kind of available electronic and mechanical medium. I mean, it's something that could not have been done ever until right now. It's just Hollywood at its most insane.
John, the way you treat your staff is...
Get back to that computer.
go. Move, move.
What's the left? Don't let it fall! Google!
Oh my God.
Where the hell is my infantry? I want that goddamn machine taken down.
Dig this. Oh, shit!
Bogey 2 at the breach point. God damn it. How many APUs are operational?
13, sir.
Give me the one closest to gate 3. He's pissing metal. Go! Heads up, they're coming down! Behind you!
Jim!
kid! Get out of here!
Got it!
Howdy, it's John Gator. This is Anatomy of a Shot for Mifune's Last Stand, the big end for Mr. Mifune. This shot is the beginning of a scene. We wanted to tell a story right away about how Mifune was basically alone, deeply, deeply in the shit, because he's now surrounded by many, many swarms, and he's trying to hold them back with, you know, pretty much every ounce of skill that he possesses. So what you're looking at here is Steve Skroce doing everything he can to demonstrate the immense epic-like nature of this battle. You have a lot to look at. You have swirling swarms, you have individual sentinels battling at the feet of the APU robot. You have the full dock environment, including destroyed zones that are in flame. And you have the main actor, Mr. Mifune himself, doing his thing. We begin the shot with a patented Wachowski boom-up, which they like to do a lot in that movie Bound. So they still like doing these kinds of reveals, you know, for horizontal plane to sort of show the action. And we finessed that a fair amount, actually. You know, how fast that was going to come up, what distance away, what amount of visibility. Would we start from darkness? So in early stages, you can see, you know, the architecture clearly, but we darkened it down a fair amount. The actual walkway that he's standing on is all CG, although it is derivative of the real sets. It's all based with components from the real set. And the entire dock itself is, it's a CG construction, but aspects of it were stripped off of live-action sets, and some of the miniatures, like the doors in the background, were photographed miniature doors that were mapped onto 3D shapes. So we got all the benefit of the detailing that, you know, painters and sculptors can bring to this process, and we embedded it into our CG version. And the first thing you see is that the sentinels are right on them. Okay, so you got like prime time on the left. You just saw there was one on the right that just passed by that was sort of ricocheting off. There's guys popping out in the air all over the place. So he's, you know, executing the sentinel underfoot with one arm while adeptly killing others, pulling them out of the air with the other arm. In our pyrotechnics shoot, we would capture perspective libraries of shredding full-scale sentinel heads with debris flying off and flame pouring out, and there was a whole recipe for what happens when a sentinel explodes. This is just a preliminary test evaluating the torque of the pan axis of the motion base to see whether it could spin the carriage fast enough. The basic idea here is that the carriage, meaning the seat that the man is in, since it is surrounded by green, it's going to be stripped off and composited over the top of the animated APU. The frame that you see at the back of the carriage with the red markers is actually being used for tracking. There are little pulsing strobe lights that will help us find the position in space of the carriage. We stripped off the carriage part of the APU that allowed us to put that on a motion base that could spin and rotate its perspective by way of a motion file, and put it in front of a motion control camera that also was being driven by a motion file. These are machines moving quickly, you know, in real time, and there's definite slop. It's a hydraulics-based system. This is like an analysis of the orientation of the camera to the carriage with the position of the APU's body. Of course, that's not the final arm animation. A lot of times what we needed to have absolutely correct was the torso and you know, the sort of relative heights and distances to the camera. The nature of this scene sort of relied upon a great interaction between a real human and the robots. But this isn't superhumans. These are real people here that are attempting to manage and operate these robots. So we figured, okay, we'll photograph all the acting that goes on inside them. It was a common design that was going on between the computer graphics group and the production design groups. It's one of the cooler interactions that we had with the art department was in the construction of this APU. As the shot continues to boom, we get somewhat of a reveal of the dock, which is obviously overrun now with swarms, and the dramatic rotation of the beastie revealing our hero Mufuni. It's a classic hero introduction.
Action on the main base.
It's basically like a tank. It should look pretty formidable, and it should be kind of clunky.
This is a physical version. We had to build this so that all the human reaction could take place. We've got to pull Mufuni out of it, and the kid's got to jump into it. And it's not articulated. It's not a robot in the sense that it moves, but it can be repositioned. It can be posed for various shots. And it's taken a lot of people to build it.
We started the gun in April or May. We didn't start the APU proper until the beginning of June, and then we're hoping to have it close to being finished middle of December. These are pieces of the thing.
This will be part of the arms. It's filled with a foam in here, plastic casts inside. They've got metal inserts.
These are the ammo casings for the bullets for the APU.
A mock-up carriage for the APU.
So it's being done in little bits and pieces and put together and made look 100 years old.
The guns are so evil, if you want, that I think I try to make them comic. If you want to make something fantastic, you add on things that people are familiar with so that they can relate to it.
It appears that art department has designed something based on an old M60 machine gun in the U.S. I mean, it's pretty impressive. The idea behind it is pretty cool.
Okay, this is full speed.
Along with building this APU, we've also built a carriage, a human carriage, which goes on a motion base, which is run by the visual effects department. And that motion base is run from the programming that the visual effects department have done. So they can put in the animated moves into the motion base, and then eventually they can take that human carriage and insert that, if you like, onto a visual effects one or a virtual one where the guns are firing and the object is moving in a very dramatic way.
They're driven by humans, as humans sit in the chest cavities. So you also have to consider the characteristic of the person driving it. So you can differentiate their movements also based on that.
What we had to do is devise a method to actually lock up, the positions of those people and have the mass of the machine that's driving them actually felt and seen in their body language.
And this motion base here is going to help us do that. Motion base combined with the motion control camera.
Both are being driven by files that have been based upon animations that we've been working on for months.
We've done an animation of the APU walking, and we've extracted some motion data out of the hips of the APU and have fed that data into this motion base and this motion control camera to repeat that same move. So basically the CG artist will be able to do all the animation for what the CG APU is going to look like, and then we'll be able to put a real person sitting on the front of a CG APU and have everything line up seamlessly.
Totally different way of doing things. You actually had to work to an animation rather than the animation follow you after you've done the actual scene. So it was hard work, physically, and really hard work actually.
As you can see here, that the seat, which is just the seat portion of the APU device, is actually mounted here to a Moog motion base.
Move base is a 6-axis device that's usually used for flight simulation and motion rides, and it moves in 6 directions of force, so it can reproduce the moves you saw in the CG animation.
Here in the back, we have these shakers. They move at 12 cycles a second. That's to simulate bullets coming out of these gigundo guns. And you see that translating into his body. I believe in you. You look up here, this is an array of strobe lights that are all file-driven based on where he's firing at the time. So they are firing off on a cue in relationship to where the position of this seat here. So this area here is dedicated to compositing on the fly, on stage, the results. So this is the whole net effect here of what you need, I guess, to make some. Of course, there must be a simpler way, probably over there, where you take the damn thing and you just shake it around like that. But it doesn't look half as cool, so we go to the lengths that we can.
The first film I saw about 7 times in the theaters. So when it came up, I just like I'm there, I'll do whatever, just let me in. I want to be down.
When I got the call that I'd gotten the role, it was just like, I couldn't believe it. I started crying and laughing and called my mom, and she was crying. She dropped a cantaloupe in the middle of the market, I think.
I kind of knew it was going on, actually, because I think I was cast quite late. All my shooting is quite late. I'd heard about it as a thing that was going on in Sydney before I knew anything about the characters that were up for grabs.
The possibilities that I would be in it began to firm up, and I was excited about it.
I'm blown away by it, really. When they asked me to be part of the next 2, it was a great surprise.
One place I do have to suspend my imagination is what's happening on the screens as I'm reading the Matrix code. And that was a little tough at first because I couldn't understand what Larry and Andy were talking about. And after a while, I feel like I developed at least a language for me that a way I could talk to them and they could talk to me and I could understand more beyond like, beyond that. And we come up with sentences that sort of sum up the kind of feeling that I understood and Larry and Andy understood. There was a lot of scenes too. It was like 22 scenes, so first, 20. They were a little tough. We got a serious situation here, sir. Performing his duties on the Neb, he is a soldier. He is there, he knows where his position is, what he's supposed to do, what his job is, and that's what it's about. When he gets to go home is when he gets to be in love. And he gets to be in love with his wife and with his sister-in-law and kids, and he gets to let it all hang out. The one thing that Link does do, which I think is really interesting, and that his name is Link, is he sort of is an interesting link between the audience and the movie. In the movie, a lot of things are happening and nobody seems to be paying attention, like Neo's flying through the air, and it's like, just another day at the office, except for Link, who's like, oh my God! He gets to be the audience member in the movie. Yes! It was a real treat. I brought my daughter in, we both sat on the seat, and she was like, hey, Dad, is this where he punched? And it's like, yeah, and we just both sat there and loved every second of it.
I was excited, but at the same time, it was bittersweet. The first few scenes that I did, they brought Aaliyah up for continuity for a shot. At first, I remember thinking, okay, I don't know how to deal with this because I'm seeing her image and I'm seeing what she had done. So it was hard. Then I started, getting really affected and upset about the fact that she isn't able to stand where I'm standing and say these lines and do this role. And it made me cry on set during a couple of scenes. And so then I realized later that it was her helping me. For some reason or other, I wasn't feeling emotional that day. I wasn't feeling connected with the scene. So I choose to think that she connected me.
In comes Nona, and she brings with her just this enormous presence, this loving, giving, and also big forceful presence, because she's like a warrior in this thing, and she's no joke. And the scenes that we share are all really touching and loving.
I think that she loves Link, and Link is about all she's got left.
They're evacuating our level. We have to go. not going with you.
I just love how crazy that siege scene is. It's just so much action going on all at one time, and we're doing it with the green screen and with imagining stuff coming down, and it reads off the page. You can see it as you're reading it.
Action.
Yes! It's crazy. I knew it was an action film, but I didn't really expect that there would be quite so much action.
It was real.
It looks amazing, that thing coming down, doesn't it?
My thing was real. I was like, ah!
Yeah. Oh, mine, so was mine. Yeah, I had to get myself some muscles. That's been an experience too. I'd never been to a gym before, and for the last 4 months I've been there every day, so a bit of a challenge. There's one particular scene last Friday week which I found was a real struggle physically, and I was in pain. Like literally bruises everywhere and chafes.
All right.
Yeah. I'm going to have to do that 2 more times. Sort of impressed with my head wound. But the scenes have been just mainly combat. I have a massive bazooka that's very heavy, and Z's shoving artillery into the back of it.
So, like, Nadia can be up there on the platform and you can, like, stick it down in the hole and pretend as if she's feeding it to you, you know what I mean?
And that's what we do together. We're just coming in and out of hatches, shooting baddies and disappearing. She has a really unfortunate interaction with a sentinel, and she cops it sweet. Melodrama.
That was good.
Just give me one clean shot.
The brothers are from Chicago, as well as being huge Bull fans. I share that with them. I'm from Chicago, and I'm a big sports fan. And I'm a former seminarian. I studied to be a priest for about 5 years. And they were a lot like guys I went to school with. There was a description that came out on the breakdowns that said, looking for somebody who could physically go toe-to-toe with Fishburne. We both are in love with Niobe, played by Jada Pinkett. She's gutsy, she is beautiful, she's tough. She's the gal that you want in that situation. And it's very easy to see why we would love her, and I think that would cause some problems between two strong-minded, forceful men.
I'm going to recommend to the council that you be removed from duty.
Perhaps to his detriment. He can only think rationally. He really wants to believe in all of the other stuff, but he cannot. I'm going to be among the surprised viewers, because when you're doing it, you look and there's a big blue-green screen or whatever with tennis balls. That your imagination is doing one thing. Locke is an interesting character. He's doesn't get the girl in the end. He probably gets left with the, he has his gun, and that's about it. You wonder what's going to happen with this guy next. She goes back off with Morpheus, it seems, and what's he going to do? And I think that he has to reassess how he looks at the world. I think once he does that, he might get a girl. You might find some perfectly nice Zionian or whatever they're called. So, in The Matrix 4, Locke's Revenge, I think that it's going to be a really interesting path that he takes.
Mifune is a man of few words, but has a fierce loyalty to Zion, and he expects that from everybody. Every time I go to work with the boys on 3rd Unit, they keep describing him as the John Wayne of the APU, the Clint Eastwood of the APU. He could do anything with it. He makes it look like it's an extension of him. That's why I liken him to a samurai with that sword thing. It's just like a hand that he does. I went and had a look at the animation before we started shooting the big siege scene. It was extraordinary just looking at that, and that was just a rough idea of what was going to happen. It was amazing because I was watching it with Keanu and Larry and Andy. And Larry and Andy were making all the sound effects that go with it. And in terms of filming, just the technical side of it, because everything has to be so precise, I actually had to adjust what I was doing to fit the animation. And so in terms of technical skill, You know, I was learning all the time a totally different way of doing things.
The machine has to come with me, and I'm already moving into the next move.
I have 4 penetration wounds here, and my face is torn as well. We're talking a lot of blood and a lot of not good-looking kind of stuff in there. And what sort of made it funny was every time I looked at the brothers and they came out and they'd say, yeah, more blood, more. You're sort of down here. Bloody yeah, that was like a river of blood. It was like, oh, it was getting in my mouth. And it opened my eyes to big filmmaking, you know, big blockbuster kind of filmmaking, which we don't often get in New Zealand, definitely not in Samoa, where I'm from.
I get to be the person who like won the lottery ticket and got to sit in the movie and be a person in the movie.
I've actually quite enjoyed this experience. It's taught me a lot.
The thing I'm looking forward to the most is being able to see it all back and see how it's all put together.
It's going to be fun to watch that on screen because we worked really hard.
It made perfect sense to me to infuse some kind of individual personality to Reloaded and to Revolutions, but within the idea of looking to the first Matrix, so that Reloaded and Revolutions will be adding to the first Matrix experience rather than going off on some kind of weird tangent that had nothing to do with it. It's not a matter of improving on what I did in the Matrix. It was a matter of developing the ideas that we had established in the first movie. Even though it's not what you could call a thematic score, there is a thematic continuity. There was a Neo-Trinity love theme that just barely made a statement in the first Matrix and made a fairly strong statement in Reloaded. And then Revolutions, it kind of went to town. We wanted the feeling that it was the same movie, at least musically, that it was, you know, a continuum of these ideas. So the way I approached it was kind of like the second and third movement of a 3-movement symphony, really. 4, 5, 6. A symphony in basic lay terms is a really long orchestral piece, and they're normally broken up into movements. I think I was able to give Reloaded and Revolutions a unique personality to the music, but in terms of style, and it really is a matter of style, I think I was able to keep some continuity going. Okay. And for 14, I'd like everybody to come down a notch.
Notice it getting higher and lower. We tune them to actual pitches to go with the bass line of the orchestra.
Hubcap mixing bowl, some brass rods welded. And I think a new number stand from exhaust pipe tailpiece. Sure looks like a big stand film. And a garden variety baseball.
Violins, 34, the upbeat of 3 tied to a dotted half note.
That's not something too many people do.
Not that many composers use that technique. Happens to them. It's pretty mysterious and eerie.
It's more of a gesture than a theme. That really got me through quite a few moments in Reloaded. There's a gesture with the brass. You know, say the trumpet section was playing a triad, and they'd start soft and get really loud, and at the same time, the horns were playing a different triad, and they'd start loud and get soft. And this worked very well symbolically between this musical concept and the underlying structure of the Matrix story. I thought Osiris was a brilliant piece of filmmaking. It had the same effect on me as I think it had on the audience in drawing the audience back into the Matrix world. It was a chance to reach into that well again and apply it to this short picture before I jumped into Reloaded. And actually, that was a big help for me. The other animes weren't quite stylistically in the same arena as the Matrix. So each of those kind of had to be approached as an individual entity. Detective story about this hard-boiled detective. I kind of approached it like a 1950s film noir thing with a little bit of a jazz feel that had nothing to do with anything in the Matrix. But the Final Flight definitely got the juices flowing and was just the ticket for Reloaded. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I think the most striking element is the use of the choir, which was really, really a lot of fun. There shouldn't be a lot of vibrato. I'd say just kind of a subtle vibrato. Poco vibrato. The way that came about is that Larry and Andy initially told me they wanted a major choir statement in what they called the Super Burly Brawl, which was the final cataclysmic confrontation between Neo and Smith. And I thought that was a really excellent idea, but I knew that we needed to have a text for the choir to sing, or else it wouldn't, it really wouldn't function properly. So I asked them if they could find something that was in the public domain that reflected the ideology that they were referring to in all three pictures. I suggested that it preferably would not be in English, and even better would be in a dead language like Latin. So my feeling was that if the choir was singing in English, and saying, "This is the one, watch what he does," it would be really antithetical to everything that they came up with. So I think it was Larry who came up with the idea of using passages from the Upanishads, which are the ancient Vedic scriptures that the Hindu religion is based on. And he wanted to do it in the original Sanskrit. And when I saw the passages that they had chosen, I was astonished at how well integrated these ancient writings were to the entire ideology that Larry and Andy had come up with for the whole thing. These are referencing the one. From delusion, lead me to truth. From darkness, lead me to light. From death, lead me to immortality. I thought that it raised the level of the integration between the music and the action, exponentially. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that the epic nature of the film was reflected in the music, and the conclusion of this mythology made for a very satisfying end to it. So I was particularly pleased by this epic nature, and I thought that the choir and the orchestra in the Super Burly Brawl was really kind of a wonderful moment for me.
It's pretty crazy because we've been in Australia. This is about a full year for me now. And
I'm excited to be going home, but it feels very displaced, you know, like it's hard to believe this is all over here. But I'm very glad it's over in the sense that now we can really begin what I love to do, which is I have all the film in front of me, more or less, except for a lot of visual effects shots that are still going to be coming in, and getting it to be a whole movie.
Right.
You know, we've been
concentrate on.
Yeah, that's all I've got to focus on now. Dailies are over. I'll have Larry and Andy's attention 100%, and it's going to be great. From the very beginning of these movies, before we ever shot The Matrix, Larry and Andy had designed a trilogy, not knowing if they would ever get beyond the first movie, because they understand the economics of making movies, and they know that in order to complete a trilogy, the first movie has to be successful. So we never knew for sure that we were going to make Reloaded and Revolutions, but that was always the intent. I always tried very hard to see it as a 4-hour movie, because it's clear when you leave Reloaded and when you start Revolutions, you're in the same physical place. The movies were shot concurrently, so I had sort of a rough assembly of most of both movies within a month after we finished shooting. Luckily, we had extensive previs of the visual effects sections that were not shot, and so by using those in the cut, that served me very well. You wanted to see the rest of the editing room, right?
Behind the magic.
All right. So out here, Catherine, did you say hi?
Hello.
That's Catherine Chase, and
Hi.
Catherine's going to be on the movie the entire time. As Catherine's a first assistant, Dave is also a first assistant. His area is mostly working with the Avid. Catherine mostly works with the film. Now here we get 2 with 1 blow. Standing with Catherine right now are Allison and Jenny. Jenny's the second assistant editor. Allison's our apprentice. Allison was with me on the first Matrix. She was our projectionist.
What do? I help with dailies. I make leaders, which is what I'm doing now. And I code the film. Do you want to have a look?
What does that do?
It actually puts rubber numbers on the sprockets on the edge of the film. So when they come to post and they need to cut the film, they run off the code numbers.
At last.
When you shoot a conventional movie, you're shooting a big dialogue scene. Basically, the director ends up shooting a lot of coverage. You know, you shoot close-ups and 2 shots and over the shoulders, and you put all that together into a scene. When you're shooting something like a wire fight, the stuff is pretty tightly choreographed. And what you'll end up doing is maybe doing multiple cameras and a certain amount of overlapping action, meaning that the actor leaps through the air and lands a punch. So maybe the punch is overlapped. And the next shot picks up, simulating the leap, jumping down and starting to punch and then going into the next stage of the fight. Your options in scenes like that are angles and overall pacing. The freeway scene is, I think at its heart, a conventional in-camera scene that heavily uses visual effects to realize its vision, but at its heart, it's shot in camera. I mean, I don't see how as an editor you read this scene and you say, you just sort of rub your hands together. The scene is 15 minutes long. It's just all about editing. The thing that's great about the way Andy and Larry shoot is almost every angle introduces new information. Reloaded is truly going to be the sum of a lot of small scenes. It's going to be very, very densely paced. It's going to be really fast. Although there are times we're really going to just sort of slow it down for these very, very difficult dialogue scenes. And to try to find that overall balance is going to be a lot of fun and really interesting. This is our visual effects division of editorial. Jody is the visual effects editor. Bridget is the assistant visual effects editor. Why don't you talk to these guys?
Basically, what we do is track and organize and manage all of the elements that they shoot on set. There are thousands and thousands. Once it comes here, Zach edits, and all the various elements that go along with the shot to composite it together go funnel through us. We scan it and send it on to the vendor. And
it's a really, really important job. It's a really big job because when I edit the scene, there's basically, I edit with what I call the hero element. And a lot of the stuff that's visual effects shots, they'll do, 8 or 10 passes in time. They'll do passes for backgrounds and passes for elements like smoke or atmosphere, and passes for lighting, and they'll do clean passes so that you can take something out of a frame. And so Jody works very carefully with the visual effects people across the hall to make sure they get everything they need. And she sits in.
He doesn't work carefully at all.
One of the things I really like about Revolutions is the fact that the first half of the movie is, at least by Matrix terms, a fairly conventional movie. And then the second half, once the siege starts, it's almost non-stop action. I tried very hard to keep the first half of the movie tense, because the whole movie is ultimately going to have a very tense vibe to it, right up till the very end. There are small things, like how often the so-called 180-degree rule gets broken, which I think probably most of the people who are watching this understand, but it simply means that if you have a circle and you've divided it in half, and the camera's on one side of that circle, on the next cut it should not cross that line to the second half, to the other half of that circle. So in the case of the Wachowski brothers, they have a certain very organic idea of how they're shooting things. And if that idea occasionally encompasses things like breaking the 180-degree rule, they've thought it through very carefully in advance.
You're empty. So are you.
If you notice, it tends to mostly get broken in the fight scenes. Because, and it's really, I'll tell you something, it's a simple approach to coverage. But once you've done it enough, then it can become an interesting bit of style, a bit of craft. When we made The Siege, I took the previses, I worked with them extensively, showed them to Larry and Andy, and we made extensive changes, both in the shots that ended up in the movies and the shots we deleted. We were able to use it as a tool for cost effectiveness, for time effectiveness, for just making the scene. I personally feel very lucky to have been able to participate on these three movies, because they really give you a palette and a chance to do work that I love doing.
My crew and I, really, one of our edicts to ourselves is to never repeat ourselves. We make it part of our operating principle that we don't just use the same material. But especially something like Reloaded and Revolutions, we wanted everything to sound new to us and to the audience. Recording sound effects is part of the sound post-process that nobody wants to think about. You know, nobody certainly wants to pay for it. So we have to find very, very cost-effective ways of doing these really crazy things. In a lot of ways, they're commensurate in difficulty with what they're having to shoot visually, you know? Microphones really are our instruments, but we do endanger them a lot. We don't have the equivalent of a long lens at all. You know, microphones are best up close.
I bet that overloaded.
One of the challenges of the car chase was that it's very long and had to build. You know, there had to be some dynamic arc to the whole scene. We also knew that the music was going to be very prominent, you know, that driving techno music. So we knew there wasn't a whole lot of room there for a lot of subtlety. We started casting for the Ducati bike very early on also, which was a huge challenge. I mean, you wouldn't think it would be, but you can rarely use the exact same vehicle, you know, for the sound that you see on picture. We find cars that seem to have superpowers as far as aggressiveness and find ways to record those vehicles. And even vehicles like Niobe's a really great car. We listened to a lot of cars and we blew up a really great car trying to get it to sound even more dramatic than it does. Sentinels were a very complex sound to begin with. You know, they each had between 10 and 16 tracks that are varying all the time and modulate with, you know, how the Sentinel's flying and what angle we're seeing them at. But now we had to extrapolate that into a huge flock of these things and yet still get some sense of frightening efficiency, you know, out of what we hear. Also, weapons had to be really created from scratch, from the ships to the giant towers. So we recorded lots and lots of gigantic caliber weapons using some more novel techniques. We had the Civil War cannon that fires 2-inch lead cannonballs. We fired that cannonball through lines of washing machines and all kinds of metal debris to get ripping sounds for the sounds of these giant large caliber bullets going through Sentinels from the sea scene. We wanted that to be a very unique, very painful, animalistic, gory metal sound.
You know your predecessors had much more respect.
When you experience a loud sound, especially a very transient sound like a gunshot in real life, emotionally what you're experiencing is that overload.
So that's what happens if you don't wait.
Yeah.
Gotta wear and protect your hearing.
What we try to do in movies is to recreate or emulate that feeling of having your hearing system overloaded. And we do that through limiting and compression techniques and distortion and overload techniques as well. Hold on! The other factor also that's important is small caliber weapons really don't make that much of a sound. But it still has to be dramatic. So even as we're recording 22s, we're incorporating a little bit of something else in it. It's the same with fight sounds, obviously. The original library that we constructed had an arc to it. You know, the sounds in the original Matrix fight starts with a very natural kind of sound in the first training session in the dojo and ends up this insanely brutal sound when Smith and Neo are fighting in the subway tunnels. In order to create a new vocabulary of hits, instead of using my own body, as I so often do for fight sounds, we hired some professional fighters. We got these two jiu-jitsu pros and just got them into our studio and a couple of other studios and just had them beat the crap out of each other for what ended up being 4 days, you know, and throwing each other onto cement and having them run and slam their backs into each other and, you know, just to create a whole new library of violent, you know, body sounds. But on top of the impact sounds, a very key part of the way the fight sound in the Matrix is the whooshes. We constructed an enormous collection of devices for making air whoosh, from you know, stacks of CDs with little spacers in between them, you know, being spun around, to all kinds of this weird metal technical grill. We would just swing them all around as hard as we could around microphones. You know, one of the most daunting challenges of the Matrix movies, and any movie that's highly visual effect heavy, is that we basically can't see the movie that we're working on, because the visual effects people are evolving the look of the movie simultaneous with us evolving the sound of the movie. From talking with Zach and Larry and Andy and John and people about what that really is going to comprise when it gets all rendered out, we can start to guess about the sound of it. So, in many cases, we don't see the movie until the audience does. I mean, if we see it finished before we ship the final soundtrack, the final print master of the movie, we're lucky. Well, the thing I like most about our work on the Matrix movies is just how significant the movies themselves have become. You know, that's very, very exciting and gratifying in a lot of ways. You know, and all of us in sound and in visuals, and Larry and Andy, and you know, everybody, and in music. I think we all feel like we work together to make something very rich, you know, and very whole.
On one machine, it would take more than a year to render this. So.
There was a time where I just thought it may just not happen at all. Like, the actual technology will not come through. The shots would not render.
Going from tens of gigabytes to tens of terabytes and tens of render servers to thousands of render servers. It's only 3.5 years since Matrix 1 was out.
A different interpretation with what we can do now and how the brothers wanted to take the story forward.
The scale of this one is just so much bigger. The whole sequences are much longer. There's more effect shots. There's these huge, self-contained, totally virtual shots.
It's about creating what we call virtual cinematography, things that you could not film.
Oh, that was a special moment right there, where we all were at our best. Even when we were at our worst, we were at our best.
It's been almost 4 years from pre-production to post. We look forward to catch up on some sleep.
It was a multinational effort, companies on 3 different continents working literally 24 hours a day. There's visual effects happening somewhere in the world.
We have all the visual effects shots within the Matrix world, which is about 1,200 shots. Kung fu, wire work, a lot of compositing, and then the synthetic human stuff. And then all the visual effects work in the real world, which is essentially 800 full CG shots.
It's just been a really excellent collaborative movie-making experience.
Here we go.
I love the material that Giant Killer Robots did.
The shots that we started working on were the Zion temple shots, which involved creating this gigantic cave underground below Zion where a lot of people congregate. But we needed to extend the set and make it feel much larger and add 10 to 20, 30 times more people than there were there. What we did is we shot about 50 different people dancing and standing and cheering, doing all sorts of different actions in front of a blue screen. And then we separated them all out and created a lot of little cards of people that we could distribute throughout the space.
They're kind of like game models. They're pretty low resolution. You can see when you get close to them, they get kind of chunky. And then when you pull back, they start to hold up a little bit more like real humans. When we rig them with simple skeletons so that any animation that we create on one character can be applied to another character. We started with the original effect from the first film, and there's these sort of veins that grow over his body, and the veins sort of make his body melt away and go into the phone. But on this one, they wanted the veins to actually crack open and reveal sort of the data structure on the inside of their body. So we came up with this idea of the grid and the data blips on the inside from just drawing all sorts of different variations of what that grid may look like. We're using this firm, BUF, B-U-F, from Paris. I gave them the assignment of code. Larry and Andy wanted to make a point that the code was like the fabric of life in the Matrix and that you could keep exponentially going into the detail.
How many people get asked to visualize an orgasm in code? That laid the groundwork for fascinating design discussions with men and women alike in the workplace about how to actually graphically depict the sensations, the sort of cyclical builds of vibrational energy. The way that BUF likes to work, they like getting photographic source material from which they dimensionalize and turn to graphics. So on that particular shoot, we had a motion control system that was doing repeat passes delicately, programmably through her legs. Luckily, the actress had a really great sense of humor.
Back a little bit.
And we had to do many different takes because BUF needed lighting effects happening upon the inner thighs of the actress. We did many of those passes and, in fact, had the costume department, Kim Barrett, make special aluminum underwear for the actress so that we could get a really sonic light at the end of the tunnel.
The city itself is another machination of Jeff Darrow and Larry and Andy's imagination.
My name's Craig Hayes. I was visual effects supervisor for Tippett Studio. For the work that we did on Matrix 3 Revolutions, which was primarily for the Machine City work, which was exciting for us because it's a big chunk of work, you know.
question is, like, let's say if we have, you know, ridges and different elevation changes.
Yeah.
And we cluster. They're able to access really complex digital effects of all sorts. They understand character and character animation better than almost anybody in the industry.
Here is the chasm that where the Logos is going to come out of. Right. The power towers in the background. So these are all the fetus fields.
It's always been kind of referred to as like a coral reef or some kind of a foreign kind of a landscape that's just teeming with life. We haven't had a tidal kind of movement. Like within the city itself, the buildings would be swaying and moving. Nothing was really static within the city. There was all these flocks of characters teeming about.
I tried to come up with an aesthetic that wasn't an aesthetic that we would recognize but was an aesthetic. I don't know if I succeeded, but that was the whole idea.
Some of the shots we started with were the fetus field reveal shots, you know, the power towers and just coming up over the edge. And just because of the sheer magnitude, you know, just there's tens of thousands of these fetus stocks. So getting some of those renders through was really a bear. It was a collaboration, without a doubt. We really felt like, yeah, these guys understand this world and we are in good hands the whole way.
What I did like about this, the latter part, was this stuff we start to see on the horizon. So I think that stuff is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where we're going.
We started up here about 2.5 years ago, and we had 6 people and 3 laptops. And now we've got, you know, about 300 people, 300 graphics workstations.
Check it out.
We've got a render farm of over 2,000 processors, 80 terabytes of online storage for shots, and about 5 terabytes of RAM in the facilities.
I think we're one of the biggest facilities in terms of raw firepower there is in the world right now. We've built tons and tons of proprietary software.
It's been a really long haul, and we've only just got there now, just in time for the end of the movies. And now with Siege, more than doubled our capacity in terms of render and disk storage.
So it goes 3s, then 5s, and then 7. To really do Jeff's work to the detail that he creates is an extreme undertaking.
Everything is massive, epic, and 250,000 sentinels and millions of machine creatures.
The rules that we have to play with in this sequence are all real-world physics. The challenge of it is that we have no real reference because these machines don't exist.
There was one thing that whenever we came in and we did, and that was the idea that there would be sort of different types of sentinels, almost like in an ant nest.
Each sentinel has 15 tentacles and 10 underarms and 10 arms or claws, and then 32 sewing needles and 6 animatable eyes. Until you start doing all of its 15-legged performance, you don't really know how much screen space the character takes up.
Because of the way they move, because of the squid-like nature and the flowing nature of the tentacles and the fact that they fly, people thought that they were underwater. And so we're trying to make this creature fly and look fluid and at the same time make it clear that no, he's not underwater. You can get all kinds of performances out of them.
We established about 15,000 sentinels at any one time. Well, that's a pretty phenomenal number of creatures to sort of keep track of, animate, render, light, make look like every one of them is doing the right thing.
It's just a memory hog in terms of rendering.
All the different elements that will be in a shot, the dock, the characters, the platforms, the subfloor, all that sort of stuff, all have to be, you know, brought into the same world and make it look real.
The bar continuously gets raised. Every huge film that comes out that involves a lot of complex effects. With that comes, you know, certain things, technical aesthetic, that you're always challenged to achieve and to surpass.
It actually looks like Morpheus, doesn't it? It's kind of cool.
The new bullet time.
In terms of technology, this is the most important stuff.
We call that virtual cinematography, meaning that there's not a real camera. It's all computer generated.
A virtual shot means everything in the frame is computer graphics, you know, CG, Neo Smith's background, everything. In Reloaded and Revolutions, you know, these characters have absolutely ascended to a new plane. And so you need these kinds of tools to pull that off.
The first thing we need is a set. So we liaise with Owen Patterson and get a set design from his department and put that into the computer. I'm very proud of the virtual environments that we created. The cities for Trinity Saves and Trinity Falls look stunning.
Specific buildings in Sydney have been selected to be the environment.
It doesn't involve us completely making synthetic creations in the computer. We still need a real set, real lighting, and real photography to get it to work.
It's just a whole procedure to shoot still photographs of subjects like buildings and other things, and then project the textures that you get from the stills back onto 3D forms in a computer 3D animation environment.
We then place pre-visualization versions of Keanu, Hugo, or Carrie Ann, and allow animators to rough out blocking to really get a better feeling for the sequences moving. The next thing that we need to do is actually start thinking about doing the shots for real.
That is a project unto itself, the human being, the perfect Neo, the perfect Agent Smith, expressions changing, fabric, hair, the whole thing.
Motion capture is a way of allowing a real actor to perform and getting that performance onto a digital body inside the computer. Because our characters are superhuman. You can't do everything as motion capture, but if we take the awesome work that can be done in the motion capture rig, we can extend it with hand animation.
His legs run back and forth instead of back, recover, boom.
Yeah.
Okay, neutral.
We as humans really can read another person's face easily.
We felt that we could not produce realistic-looking human faces by purely having an animator physically animates each of the characters in the scene.
We decided to build this system, which we call Universal Capture System, which consists of high-definition cameras and arranged around that actor's face.
The UCAP process is a proprietary process that we developed here to capture an actor's facial expressions and bring that into a digital realm.
So the trick here is to not have anyone know that they're virtual humans. That is the highest bar to jump over. The scene really has a blend of all different types of techniques. There's virtual backgrounds, virtual city. There's glistening CG glass, bullet wakes and all of that stuff.
In the first film, they sort of came out as discs, and they just kind of hung out as discs. In this shot, and in all these shots where wakes occur, there's a kind of pulsing system where it's kind of like a wave that kind of like the discs pulse in and out. Biggest sequence that I've had involvement with is the Burly Brawl. It's really one of the first times we have like full frame CG humans and lots of them. The other thing we wanted to do is come up with camera moves that we've never really seen in movies.
Our goal was to sample what they've done and recreate it as close as possible to the real thing, but just give them the ability to move the camera like crazy.
You can basically sit there and think up any shot within your own mind and recreate it in CG, which is the beauty of it. You're not limited by a camera rig, a crew. It can all happen within a computer.
That was one of our defining anime-esque action beats.
A lot of the things that he tries to do in his everyday performance, I just tried to incorporate that into his movements. He's not too worried about this fire, though, because he is Neo. He could probably turn around and control it if he wanted to. Then I assigned this UCAP performance. I've got it going so it kind of matches his movements and punches, and his teeth start gritting as he's going down the hall.
This shot we started out with, the first Matrix movie had the elevator lobby. A combination of fire, but with a very liquid feel, but also with sort of a semi-intelligent behavior.
With this feeling of this fire crashing down and turning corners, how the flames would hit and then open up into the claw that kind of reaches forward and just wraps around Neo.
Great examples of what you can do with virtual cinema technology, because it's a subconscious event, it's a fantasy event, but it has that hyper-realism.
To have someone say, how did they shoot that, would be like, it's a pretty good compliment, I think.
And so we were learning all the time. It's like people have never done these shots before. Technology is at a place right now, and rendering is at a place, and all the advances that we've had in computers that allow us to do these kind of shots.
this guy here. He does this all day. Isn't that brilliant?